How's it going, Dom?
Pretty good, Axis. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, um, a little more self-aware. Let me turn this down. There we go. Yeah, I've been kind of observing the local community that we tend to find ourselves in, and it almost to the point now where it feels like the same playground recess antics repeating itself over and over and over. So I took a step back and had to recalibrate because I was able to start playing with my mind again and expanding different perceptions, states of being, and I just wasn't digging the atmosphere at all.
We might be on the same wavelength. Um, I guess that's why I reached out to you. I was just thinking if you're available. I know you have a channel. Um, Certain topics that me and you have shared privately. I don't know if you want to talk about it on this platform. Um,
Oh
what,
yeah, it don't
yeah,
bother me at all,
yeah.
Tom.
What came to mind today was disciplined. Learning the discipline of something, whether it's a craft of some sort. And yeah, I today I was a break because I got to spend time doing some stuff for my parents. So I kind of didn't have I had reason to do something opposed to surf online for a bit. So, but when I got home, I kind of heard some of the channels, and some of them were good. Some of them they were sharing certain information, but the rest of it, I'm kind of on the same page with you when it comes to. I didn't really enjoy it myself either.
No, it's really taken a downturn. I noticed I have been very appreciative of you hitting the chat rooms because the you drop bombs and you try and allow people to analyze themselves, kind of holding up a mirror with your words in chat. But I've noticed even that has gone almost virtually to the wayside,
Hmm.
except for a couple different channels that recognize the value of what you have to say. And when I seen that, I was just like, really, you know. So I took a deeper look into content and the content creators, and it was like I said, man, living the same day on the playground over and over, and I just was so redundantly, profoundly put aside by this. I was like, man, I got to get away. I got to get where I can stretch my mind a little and breathe.
Hmm. I'm with you. It's if we see the same things over and over again, I guess the onus is maybe on other groups, maybe me or you or other people to realize, well, then maybe the onus is on us to form or have our own chats because eventually most people start selling the same wares at the flea market, and a lot of these, even though online there's many ways, many places to go. The onus is on me. I'm the one that keeps going to the same places, and if I see it, and unless I want to go somewhere else that's different, maybe I can create something different. So I'm very appreciated, Access, that you permit tonight, and maybe this could be even a regular thing. If that's, I'll leave that up to you. Actually.
Um, I wouldn't mind it at all, Dom. I
Hmm.
really wouldn't. I do enjoy being able to speak to a more broad-minded platform and at least exchange ideals, information, and you know, even if it's a speculative approach to something, it's
Hmm.
information, you know.
Hmm. Well,
And
go ahead.
I think I think that most of these content creators and platforms have played themselves out.
Probably, and I'm probably with you. It's one of those things. If that's what that particular flea market's selling, then eventually me, you decide to have coffee and go somewhere else.
Sure.
Because there's quite a few. I was thinking about it today when I was driving into where my parents live, and there's a lot of older gentlemen that I've met on these panels, and I know they would gladly share on panels. Where I get it, there's a lot of younger people, and they're sharing, and I hope the best, whatever they're sharing. Um, Preferably, in my preference, something that can help each other build, or at least help each other with their own foundations. Um, oh, speaking of gentlemen, there's one right there, Mr. Joe Cool. Joe, you want to come up, buddy? You're more than welcome. So hopefully, we can establish it and then go from there. Because you can't expect other channel providers to change their way. If anything else, develop it, and if it comes to some sort of dead end, if that's what it is, then hopefully they'll do something about it.
Right. Uh, it's worth a shot to offer some new, fresh, fertile ground to plant some seeds in, and allow others to plant their seeds in and see what grows.
Hmm.
I'm definitely open to that. And if I can provide a platform where people can achieve some type of fulfillment other than the redundancy of ridicule, that would be great. I would really, I would really appreciate something like that happen.
Hmm.
Um, this constant questioning of you know trying to figure out where the circle starts and stops and what is life. I mean, the the easiest Occam's razor approach to things is you exist. This is what you are. This is your state of being. You exist. Now, you can either experience the existence and find something fulfilling within it, or you can just sit back and speculate, poke, prod, and ponder until the madness sets in. And at that point in time, you have to make a decision. Accept the madness, allow it to transcend you into higher states of understanding and being so that you can experience life, or keep yourself confined in trying to figure out where the circle starts and stops by questioning your own existence constantly.
Yeah, I think a lot of us eventually just settle at that point access. We settle for the drama, the entertainment, the many obligations and duties that we give to each other. So then when things present themselves, such as there's esoteric information out there, even to try to understand the stuff that most people have been doing most of their existence, such as chasing fiat currency, going to jobs, not understanding where most of the products or services are, well, probably more the products where they've been created. And I can see how a lot of us end up getting into like a law. And then when these kind of other technologies come, we bring our own our old habits to the forefront. So it's actually a great start that people will realize, do I really want to constantly want to hear the bickering? And for some people, they wouldn't actually go out of their way to create it, but they like it when other people do it, and they just kind of sit on the sideline and do the finger pointing, and they think they're being somewhat wise. Where I just see we're being clever, because I know myself well enough to realize for me to participate in those things, I know I would have to be clever.
Yeah, uh, till the joke becomes even on an esoteric level unamusing and no longer funny.
Hmm.
And I don't like I said, I develop constantly and I live constantly. You know, such as the purge that I just done. Well, that was just achieving another state of being that I could experience, and I got through it. That was
Hmm.
an expression of will, strength, endurance, and self accomplishment. And I was sustaining that until I felt comfortable exploring different regions and realms of myself, and where I could take my mind and body, and I I, I am movement. You know, I tend not to mentally stay in the same stagnant spot of water.
Yeah, some
It
people
it,
like that. Access. Go ahead. Try access.
it becomes poison. Is basically the bottom line.
Hmm. So I was going to say something like that. You doing that for yourself. For some people, if they can correlate, well, a person purges from chasing something, whether it's money, uh, we'll say sex, chemical release from sex, or anything. Then this is where we can correlate with each other, because I don't think we're always going to experience the same thing of each other, and even that's questionable. Am I truly experiencing somebody else's mishap or success just because it might look like from the surface it looks like similar, but when you start breaking it down, there's probably a lot of makeups that changes that. So for somebody to, like in this case, you talking about purging, somebody else can relate, whether it's another substance, medicine in this case, or just purging the drama, as we were talking about earlier, and realize, oh, that's challenging. How do I do that? How do I pull away from it?
Right. I think that's where the term quitting comes in, and that was something that I had to understand is you can be in the process of quitting for a very long time, but when you quit quitting, it's over.
Hmm.
You just set it aside and move on. And that takes a lot of discipline and a lot of internal will and self control. And I think it also brings personal growth through life experience. Um, if you're constantly in the same state and your mind is treading the same uh, arena of lack of intelligence or just slightly on board of intelligence, um, you will become consumed by it, and you have to just decide to quit quitting and start living, so that each experience and each day holds something new and mind broadening instead of mind numbing.
Yeah, and that's where some people might have that ability to quit, and then other people assist each other by saying, okay, let's be honest with ourselves. What How are we going to transfer that? Are we going to go from one dependency to something else? And the numbness, I can relate to that. But sometimes just shifting it from one to another, whether it's drinking to coffee, from coffee to working, from working, go online, from online, go back to another task of some sort, or eating. There's always that constant movement, and then we can transfer them back and forth. Some people think it has to be, and it can be for some people, a clean cut. I won't do that particular habit. Well, then what else are you introducing then? And then we start using words, good habits or bad habits, where some habits are just more sustainable than other habits. So I don't know. Then we have to question: are they really bad habits, or are they just something you can learn? You learn something to be able to sustain it for a while.
Yeah, I've noticed you in our private conversations here recently. I've went through some new life experiences, and I haven't got the full scope of how deep that ran, but I've got a pretty good idea that you got to not only re-experience feelings that you don't get to experience every day,
Mhm.
but you kind of cut new ground with being able to um, interact and perceive that experience.
Mhm. Yeah, I know it's always there. It's just usually when it touches home, and it's kind of one of those. It's not really the exact same example, but very similar. Where once you buy a white car, you start seeing everything else around you. Oh, there's more white cars or green cars. So once I experienced something, in this case, it was loss. Then you start seeing it all around you. I'm like, where was I before? And that's where either a person, in my case, unaware, or there's a part of me that knows it's there, but I just don't address it because it's not in my backyard or front yard, front lawn.
Right. Um, each new life experience outside of the time that's devoted to social media or whatever platform that you find your escape in is very valuable at this point in time, especially in the environment, socially and politically, that we're in. I mean, you better get some jollies and kicks in pretty quick because I noticed that each day, you know, just natural joy that used to be felt just by walking down the street is slowly turning into a an energy that's kind of difficult to deal with. There's a lot of I'm noticing hostilities, uh, a lot of desperation. A lot of people are in a state of fear, um, and that really takes away from some of the more beautiful experiences that you can have. So you take each experience now and kind of cherish it a little more than, or at least I do, more than I did before, because it's become a lot more rare to have that interaction with anyone that has a good feel to it. So I think that's why a lot of people go to the social media and even find a comfortable residual looping there is because they're not self-fulfilling their life expectancies, and secondly is they're not they're not having access to that experience as conveniently as it used to be.
Hmm. So true access. I got this is what I'm getting from this. I think this is being designed, in ages or not ages, but decades earlier when books were written and people started using their imagination and living through magazines, whether it's a Mad magazine, cartoons, sorry, like Marvels, or even philosophy books or whatever. I think what's going on even here, it's a slow organic build, but I think they realize, whoever's putting this out there, that people are going to start building this animosity with each other. Because it'll show. Because if they look at what radio and TV has done, you get the occasional person that will say, "I don't believe in watching TV." Oh, okay, but do you have the ability to have discernment of what you're seeing? So I think a lot of, and I'm just maybe overgeneralizing, a lot of people that are online don't really have the ability for discernment. So the people that are actually, and this is where the majority rules, if people are getting triggered, that will build chaos. And in building that chaos, it'll be mayhem. And it will probably justify if they're always talking about in past of having, like, let's say, a war of some sort, whether it's an economic or something. I really want to limit how I say it, but it will be animosity. And I think it's designed because the wise will
Well,
still be wise. Go ahead.
yes, yeah. Here in the states, um, they're showing a severe uh, response to the border crisis, the, the immigrants, and um, I guess the governor of Texas has defied federal law, and he's chosen to take a stand with many other states against you know presidential orders and rules that were handed down, and now the public is getting involved with the convoy, and they're actually going from many different states down to Texas to I don't know what their intent is, whether it's to hold the line or what comes from it. But it was almost like when I heard the news that this was going to take place yesterday and that it was underway, it was almost a relief. Like they had been building this situation up, and subconsciously I was picking up on this, and it was an observed type of tension building from my subconscious, and I almost felt the release. Whenever I heard that there was going to be actual opposition headed to the border, and I was like, wow. I didn't realize. I knew what it meant to me that that was coming across the southern border, but I didn't realize the anticipation that was building in me for there to be a reaction, and that was
Again, access.
pretty. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. Well, I was going to say access. Sorry. Thanks. Again, it's us not having awareness. If people really, if we were, I can't say, if we were able to be very informed on how a lot of things work, they would realize why are we making a big stink about foreign workers or immigrants when the country survives off of it. It kind of goes back to in past where Gandhi would say some things such as, to punish you guys because you're not listening, I'll fast. Well, if people understand fasting, I said, you can't threaten us with with something that's healthy, actually healthy. But it takes
Right.
people to be very ignorant to understand that. This is where ignorance, it rules. Their naivety is whoever's bliss. So to think that it's a bad thing, that most of, well, let's say Canada and America, a lot of the jobs, well, not a lot, quite a few jobs rely on immigrants coming in for wage purposes. It's repopulating communities. But the way it's put in, or they take advantage, or not even take advantage of the people that have done well, and now they're getting all upset because they're going to have to pay a little bit more now because they've done well. Well, how do you help everybody else? You're just as strong as your weakest link or your newest link. So again, the way it's the media, how they slant it, but for a lot of people, they're just unaware. It's like somebody talks to me about a virus. Okay, do you understand what viruses are? That would be my first question. What type of virus, and do you understand how it works? But for some people, the way it's slanted, and they're so quick to make the assumption. After that, it runs by itself.
Yes.
You
Yeah,
know,
I
and,
agree.
yeah, and that's where the masses, they're the ones that participate because it's their energy. You can't sustain it with the few. You can hurt it to a certain point on the outside, and then the rest of the cows do the rest. The sheep do the rest, and that's how it works. I'm going to be very delicate in how I say this. By the way, Access. At any
Yeah, that's fine.
point, quickly stop me. When they brought something out in 2019 and 2021, we're
Hmm.
talking about. I'm going to use the word mask if I'm okay saying that.
Yeah.
So in the mask, if people understand what it does, how your nose and your mouth work, people will say, well, then a mask is not healthy. I said, okay, but where were you when the Muslim culture, conditioned their women to wear masks? There's one. But how they enforced it with another outside story. So to convince a whole bunch of people with masks, they had to talk about a virus. So now if people grab that, as much as people think, oh, that's a new thing, I said, no. What do you mean? Well, Dom, let's look back in the time when they had condoms. Call that a mask. And then they
Right.
started manifesting viruses, gonorrhea, AIDS, all that is orchestrated. Whether people want to be aware of this, they give a lot of that stuff to people that are doing drugs. Next thing you know, a virus comes to be. So now, what is it when people are actually, they call it practicing safe sex?
Uh-huh.
Safe sex. So now that mask is the same mask that we're wearing in that those couple of years. It's about population control.
Well, it
So
has been
people,
for
yeah, yep,
many, many, many years.
yep.
Actually, centuries, or not so much centuries. Yeah, centuries, not in
Hmm.
decades. Yeah.
Yep. So how many people literally wear a mask? We'll call it for guys wearing it on their PP, and now it's not reproducing, which is fine. But people still going on having intimacy, but not understanding how they herded them to wear it. And then eventually they convinced the women, which is called birth control. The word gives it away, birth control. So
Hmm.
now this other thing, it's the same ideal. It's kind of like me and you're going to go hunting season for deers, and then we're going to say, okay, now we're going to stop hunting for deers. We're going to make it only seasons. Same ideal. Now, if humans were at least aware of that, we're meant when we're born to die. And I'm talking about this, the form. Once people get that out of their system, it's okay. Well, there's nothing to really worry about or fear. You can't fear something you've never experienced. And if you experienced it, then what would you be fearing? That's the game that most people play with themselves. And but what they end up doing is they might get irritated. There's a part of them that knows they're angry, but they're lashing on the wrong people. They should be lashing at themselves because something inside of them is saying, I'm fucking pissed at you because you're such a moronic student. Yeah, I'm gonna be careful on what I say. They're being childlike, consciously ignorant, whatever. But they think it's outside that they're upset. No, it's inside. You're upset. There's something that tells you you've misled yourself. And the misleading could just be that's how the system is set up. It's not about the injustice of the world because most people aren't really going to study what's going on in India, what the kids have to do there, or in Asia, let alone in different ghettos in the States or Canada.
Right.
And
They
what they see
don't.
is and what they see is what they see in the media. And the media never once said that they're there to tell you the truth. They're there to entertain you. The movies give it away. TV series give it away. The sports give it away. So now all of a sudden, in all those different entertainment, they're going to give you a couple of gems of truth. Maybe, but I doubt it.
The observation that I made was from I took a spirit walk, and I found myself in a particular state where the indigenous um, tribes before the Europeans migrated over here were weeping, and there was uh, there was so many um, sorrowed eyes and tears, and amongst them were early Western European settlers, and I was observing this and walking amongst them, and I, I I really was taken by that because that's a part of my heritage, and I couldn't figure out why other than the early European uh, migrants, I couldn't figure out why my ancestors were weeping and why the tears were crying in this sadness, this sad sickness. And then I cast my eyes to Texas and Arizona, and I realized it was just a part of a repeating cycle. Um, Now the European immigrants are facing a situation that they had bestowed upon the early indigenous people of this land.
Yeah, I think with tribals, you've experienced it firsthand. The ones that work the land, especially if they're attuned to the land, they probably see certain traditions or customs will probably slowly die away. And in it, nature will probably be misused or ignored, probably more times not misused. You know, in room for advancement technology, for example, a different version of technology, even though we're in a vessel, I think it's pretty high tech.
Yeah,
So
it's biomechanical,
mm,
absolutely high tech, extremely.
one thing is to be a farmer and that's all they've ever done, or no, they've always enjoyed it. I'm not going to say that's all they've ever done. They've enjoyed it and they've lived it and they've passed it on from generation. And now all of a sudden they're slowly being squeezed out. I can see a sadness coming from all of that, you know, and I get it. Inevitably, you know, son, daughter, whatever, this new technologies come in, a car, you know, outside of a car, then, you know, this factory. But eventually it becomes maybe too much. And now we're disharmony, you know what I mean? Like to a point where nature might have to spew us out, spit us out. You know, that's best case scenario, or maybe worst case scenario. Best case scenario would be that we work with it. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot of communities that still do it, you know, but is it enough? You know what I mean?
Well, I've seen um and talked to several people that come from Chicago, and I keep, I still keep ties with Chicago because that was home base for me at one point.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the influx of immigrants there are really um, starting to disrupt the flow of Chicago. Not that it had a good flow to it in the past. I mean, parts of Chicago were just naturally violent, especially from all the way back in Prohibition to modern times. Um, but I'm watching the people leave Chicago, and Detroit isn't much better, but they are hitting areas like Toledo, Ohio, Fort Wayne here where I'm at, Indianapolis, Champaign, Illinois. Um, all the people from Chicago are just bolting for other communities outside of Chicago because I guess it's become that disrupted. And I was just kind of looking at the parody of that as a nation that was standing when the Europeans come over here and decided to create the manifest destiny that they did. Uh, the disruption that my forefathers must have went through trying to find a sanctuary place to, I guess, find peace, safety, um, familiarity, and comfort. And it's kind of, to me, a cycle being repeated from when the Europeans started eliminating the ability for the indigenous natives to survive comfortably here in this land, and now it's happening to the Euro immigrants, and they're having to deal with an impoverished, uh, excessive population that's coming into their area and trying to adjust to the American way of existence and living without having any heritage to this land. And I guess that's creating a really bad cultural situation for both parties, the immigrant and the the people that have gotten used to living here in the states the way it had been, because it's changed. This is a very different place to be now
Mm-hmm.
as it was, you know, 20 years ago.
Well, I think there's been different waves. You know, when people used to move from, you know, previous wars, because access, I think a lot of this is strategized. So they come over here, or they ship them over here from Ukrainian, from Italy, from Portugal, all those different places, and then they form communities. They're little ghetto communities, I'll call them. And then there, we were living in a different age, mechanical age, industrial age. Populations, they hadn't had a clear cut global when it comes to birth control. So now, to mask, it's been doing such a great job in their interpretation of population reduction. They have to make sure that people don't realize how much countries like America and Canada and all these European countries had actually their populations reduced. When
Right.
you start hearing about 1.3, 1.4, that's actually done their job. So what they've done is they've shipped a whole bunch of other cultures over here at the same time, because these are all strategies going on here, all these different parts. They've basically got their fiat currency in all the worlds. They know what they're doing. They have long-term plans. So, but for the average person on the ground, they're just going to say, well, did you have a whole bunch of Europeans coming over to Canada and America when they had a whole bunch of other Europeans or Irish and all that before? Well, there were just big families. You could distinguish the difference maybe on the color of their skin, the way they talked, and what kind of crafts they had. Today, it's people who lived somewhat well in certain parts of Canada and America, not all. And they're seeing, okay, we only have one or two kids. Some of us don't even have kids. And now they're seeing a whole bunch of other people that are bringing little customs with them, 3 or 4 people in their family.
Yes.
So they see something, they just don't know it. But a lot of times people lean towards, well, it's something bad, opposed to, no, not always bad. It's something that's productive for the community, regardless if outside, the elites, whoever they may be, are just making shift. They purposely made sure all the major cities in the world, houses, they controlled it to get out of control. They know what they're doing, because in that, people will make that decision. Should we do birth control, hon? Why? We can't afford to have another kid if we're paying $1 million for a house that we're barely supporting with 2 of us working. That's
Right.
strategy.
And
Yeah.
yeah, the economic slant has gotten that ridiculous.
Yeah, but that's strategized. That's strategized. That's not by accident.
Yeah.
That access. So
Yeah, that's social designing and engineering. Yeah, 100%.
I want to share that. Go ahead, sorry, actually, my apologies.
I think that even anyone who buys into the staged and rehearsed governmental setting and portrayal of politics now is almost like it's like watching a piss poor comedy. And a lot of people don't realize that they're watching a piss poor comedy. They actually wholeheartedly buy into one side or the other, or this micro sized view of their take on America and what they're being fed through media. And they're they're actually become so suggestible that they don't see the humor, bad humor, but the humor that's being portrayed there. I mean, you guys are feeling it in Canada with, I hate to say dictator, but that's pretty much what you're dealing with.
My wife calls him that.
Uh-huh.
It's just because it's such a smaller population of a country. We can, people can perceive that. But there's been I remember when I was in Malaysia, the prime minister there, I think he was in prime minister for like 20, 25 years. And even that, I think his kids are actually, they're the ones that are running now. So it's just a different version, so it's good to know this information. For me, I like to observe it, opposed to some people, they want to do something about it. As well, then the onus is on you to understand how the system is working. You can't tell somebody, well, it's not fair. We don't like the way you guys have an upper hand on us. Well, that's just the way it is. Everybody on that team is 7 foot tall. You guys are all 6 feet tall. You're just going to have to figure out a different way how to compete with them.
Right. And my personal observation and why I even brought this up was whenever I heard that there was going to be a a social movement headed towards the border. And like I said, there was almost a sense of uh, a relief that this pinnacle had rose to know that this 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 powder keg, it seems like the wick is starting to be lit now. And you question as to whether the social engineers are gathering up what they would consider to be dissidents against the immigrant policies that are being laid forth, and they're walking into another what do they call that, the insurgent uh,
Hmm.
that happened at the Capitol. I mean, it's like fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And I mean, Canada should know above damn near anybody else exactly how the convoys worked out up there.
Hmm.
And now America is kind of mimicking that. And you know, you kind of wonder under this climate what's going to pop off, because one side or the other is going to use this to their full advantage, and it's going to create a social dynamics that people are going to have to deal with, even
Hmm.
economically.
I think Access, a lot of those protests never had grassroots. So what they do is they know, or maybe this is my way of my little mastermind way of thinking things, where these are going to have a problem. So we're going to be on top of it. We're going to create the convoy first. And then we're going to punish some of our own to give them the impression. So if anybody down the road wants to go underground with this is what you better be prepared to see, because it was more or less reaction. Whether it's the convoy, Black Lives Matter, what's going on in Holland and Germany with the farmers. You still got to pay for your protests. You got to have police officers there. Some of them will even have military, but they're having their own still. So they haven't even pushed the envelope yet. It's when you have to do martial law that that's grassroots. As long as you have your own police monitoring your own citizens and your own military, that's probably being staged.
That's what my thoughts were
Yeah,
completely.
there's yeah. So that's their way of saying we'll give the people what they think they want. Pushback, but we're going to orchestrate it. And then you have people that are they're getting paid to pretend to be farmers. Hey, we're going to dump a whole bunch of manure on the front porch of some government. Well, they're not the ones that are running the show. Why are you wasting your time pouring it there? It's like in Canada. Hey, we'll get the prime minister we'll put him at the Parliament building, and then we'll get all these independent truckers to get off the major highways and then take all the side roads to get to the capital of Ottawa. But meanwhile, where was all the big corporation truckers? They weren't there.
Right.
And why did they get them off the major road? Because business as usual. And meanwhile, people are thinking, yeah, but they're protesting. Just because you have a camera on it and just because it's online, don't think for 1 second they're doing anything that's going to make a change. I get the protest part. Yeah, you can protest all you want. Just do it orderly in a corner that we tell you where you can be. Make sure you get the permits. So, how is that organic? How is that grassroots? It isn't. It's controlled from
Right.
top to bottom. But yet people say, yeah, but we did the protest. Again, let's do like doing a business plan. Let's check up on it. So what happened? What got done? Well, a couple of them, they lost their bank accounts. I said, let's do some backup. Are they actually on their team? It's like going to the casino. Some people are going to win, and they'll even tell you how many percentage win, but how many of them actually that are winning are actually laundering money.
Right. The gaming commission, generally the odds are supposed to be 70-30.
Yep.
Is what the gaming commission. So you can kind of apply that to social engineering and what they decide to create for a situation, which they have really um, engineered some pretty interesting situations, all the way from what happened, with the Capitol to, all the way Ukraine, the border, and the social dynamics are really being played with. Now, the long term on this, and what I'm watching as far as how this is going to apply itself in the future, is eventually all these migrants that have come over here are going to be on social media. So all these platforms that are, kind of just playing the field of whatever the recess game is today and who we're going to pick on today, are they taking into consideration that this time next year there is going to be such a dynamic change in social media, because there are 7 million new people in this country that will fully take advantage of social media.
They can actually, but there's a good chance they'll just be the working class. Like if all of a sudden America, I'm just going to use America because America's the empire right now. Um, they drop from a developed country to an underdeveloped country. Well, how are we going to get the work staff? Oh, ironically, you already have them in there. The status of America could easily drop. Now,
Hmm.
again, working class. In this case, I don't think they're even the working class yet. They're probably they will be working, but they will probably, like you said, immigrants. They will probably filter in. Like in the restaurant industry, there's a lot of probably business that's underground that hire people, construction and all that. So for them, they might not be able to have some of the luxuries, such as having an extra cell phone, a car, a laptop. It's like forefathers. It was the same idea. It's just a different time. There's a good chance AI will take over most of the online stuff. It'll be GPT or whatever. We'll see some human person, but it's really just a green screen and somebody talking. Because really, most of the media supposedly they say it's staged, it's scripted, written. So you're just a
Bots.
person that, yeah, well, bots, but they literally could be human beings. And the scripts that are handed to all these different TV stations throughout America and Canada have to read the same ones.
And they
So,
create the social media weather,
yeah,
artificial again. Yeah,
yeah.
I can see that. Definitely see that. I was asked, well, a few times in the last couple of months about my videos and my music being AI produced. Well, nothing I do with my music and my videos has anything to do with AI. That's all analog and MIDI and
Mhm.
me. But I got to thinking how much influence is being, you know subjected in my art, that people would misinterpret actual craft for it being AI produced. That really blew
Mhm.
me away, because I was
Mhm.
like, I wasn't even trying to portray anything near AI, but apparently, without me consciously knowing, I had started developing that influence into my artwork. And I was like, damn,
Mhm.
now people are questioning whether the music they're hearing is actual genuine music. And if you kind of straddle that surrealistic line, they're automatically thinking it was AI produced, which is just machine learning algorithms. It's not true AI, but and they're comfortable with that.
Well, we adapt to it, whether or not it's how much is human content, how much is being generated by a third, fourth generation AI. They do that with drawings, for example, where eventually in a short period of time, they're already at 1,000 generations because AI just has all that information. Even our technology, whether back in the days with synthesizers, that is tech. It's just not having a onboard program taking over what a human would have done before. There's always
Right.
human input, but now it's going to be, what's the effect after? Okay, the initial might be human. You go. I've had a friend that worked at Bombardier, the airline here. They had a whole bunch of technicians coming from different parts of the world. Again, those are more different types of immigrants, just high-end immigrants coming over here from Ukrainian or from Poland, and then they helped the airline with all the program. But as they're doing it, they're also implementing that the program can take over by itself. So now you only need a couple of people that are troubleshooters to maintain it. So now that's where we're at. I've talked to buddies that are in the banking business. There's only certain things they can do in the banking, and then there's a wall. So then there's another program running. That's where we're at. So we're no longer worrying about just, okay, well, back in the days when farmers used to go and sojourn and help somebody pick grapes, now they brought in a big machine. Now they're bringing in a machine with something on top of it that runs it. It's like drones. They can spray farms, for example. That's just where we're at. And along the way, we'll probably come to the cruel realization. So then, if all of these things are being run by AIs and computers, do you really need a big population? No. Reason why? Because we have to shelter you. We got to have all those grocery stores. From the Earth's point of view, it's actually advantageous to have less people
Right.
that has, unless we're all going to go back to becoming farmers and we're going to start scattering throughout the Earth, not just in certain areas. The best places for farmland would be where people have cities because it's near the water.
As long as the water is still um, healthy for growing crops. I'm watching environmental and ecological changes too,
Hmm.
especially what my daughter is informing me of because she's into, you know, her job. Part of her job besides music is ecology,
Hmm.
and naturally she has to let old dad know, um, what the environmental status is, and surprisingly, it's more conducive to technology than it is agriculture.
Yes, most of the pollutant comes from the big corporations. Hey, we'll just dump it in the lake. It's just right there.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? We'll dump some of our fuel up and through the oceans. I get it. Okay, what are we going to do with all our garbage? Oh, we'll just throw it in the ocean. Okay. And then we wonder, it's us advancing with our technology at the expense of our, as you, we've booted out animals in a lot of ways, and we're going to probably boot out our human form because eventually it's going to be,
that,
can we all live and coexist the way we've polluted it?
that's what I'm seeing is a systematic removal of outdated technology, biomechanical, human,
Hmm. Hmm.
and it's becoming a lot more clear with the way that they're operating the healthcare system, um, and even with maid service in Canada. It's like I spoke to you before. Is they're so abundant now, they're just allowing them to freely exercise assisted suicide, and there's almost like having pocket change that you just throw in a jar.
True.
We don't need them anymore. So let's just legalize this assisted suicide. I'm waiting for it to hit the states again. Kevorkian had made headway in that area, and I really didn't. It took me by surprise that Canada adopted it before anybody else did. But they did their part with the ventilators here in the states. Now I'm just waiting for them to exercise the ability for the impoverished, the downtrodden, or the depressed to receive assisted suicide, like Canada's
I think in
offering.
Canada, yeah, outside of Ontario and BC, Quebec has its own French laws they follow. Canada's pretty easy to implement a lot of those things because in the States you have to contend probably with all the different states. They make all these different rules for their corporations, and then they made landmines. Most of those different laws that they make in different states, it helps their big corporations. But at the same time, when they have to move around and changing all the laws, it's challenging for them. It's like I remember when they were talking with Obama and hearing that he wanted to bring in a system such as Canada. I knew that was a smokescreen. It had to be a smokescreen. Because the elites or rich people in America probably already have their own medical care. The average person can't afford medical care. You'll get it in the military. And
Right.
from what I understand, they would have to change so many thousands of laws to even implement it. So it was just, hey, you voted me in. I'm a dark-skinned human being. Meanwhile, Biden's going to be running the show still. Um, distract the average, voter, even though their votes don't really count. Like they count them, but they don't count.
They're
But
not
hey,
effective.
it's business as usual. I know people don't always want to hear that. I said, but you got to look at it from different sides. If you were born into a wealthy family, how do you think you would be? How do you think you would be able to move from becoming a billionaire to a trillionaire? You got to play at bigger tables, and you got to make sure you don't go after nickels and dimes. So you're going to have to shift certain things, and that's what they do. I remember a long time ago was when Russia decided that it no longer wanted to be like the wall came down, as they call it.
Right.
And they were concerned. United States was concerned because when they started promoting democracy or something similar, that the Russian people would want to go back to their old ways. So Canada, being in the G8, and the only reason why Canada's in the G8 because their big brother America says, yeah, we want them in there because they're right beside us.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're not deal with all the other European countries that have way more GDP than Canada. They actually forced Canada to give their wheat freely to Russia.
Ah.
So this way you can keep the people all at bay. But wait a second here. You're going to take the responsibility of the Russian government to do that? Yeah, so what's going to happen with them? And then you understand why they became so many billionaires. Because they didn't have to worry about feeding their people anymore.
Right.
And
Right.
that's why guys like Putin, okay, not Putin, forget about the name. But that's why certain people just become rich in different parts of the world. Even here, we're getting the propaganda or propaganda, whatever the word is, where they tell people, oh, in China, it's all these Chinese. No, those are just big corporations that have moved over there. That's all they
Ah.
are. Nike's
A lot
over
of them from the
there.
States.
Yeah. And even that, they probably were never in the States before. They were probably in places like Bangladesh, Bangkok, Thailand, and all that. So now they just make parts everywhere. You know what I mean? Some of them, the high tech, they might get them done in Germany. Other parts, we'll bring them to China. Only thing we got to bring over there is not the people. We just got maybe some high tech people. Outside of that, we just need a factory. We'll make all the Mercedes aftermarket parts and real parts from the same place. It's just a matter of putting a different stamp on it. It's good
Right.
that people at least become informed of that stuff and then realize, oh, it's a game that actually has structure. Yes, it's a game that has structure.
What was the laws on suicide before they introduced an age? Was it illegal to commit suicide, like in the States here, or was it a psychological thing that they took you out of society and kind of reconditioned you not to want to do self harm, or what was the prior standing?
Either you would know more about that because for me, when you presented it to me, I know Jude probably tells me, yeah, she's giving me the heads up. I don't know what it was before. Like if it was literally a crime, I don't know. Actually, I couldn't tell you. The fact that you told me it's a crime there, I'm pretty sure that's probably insurance tied.
Yeah.
You committed that, so that means you can't even get your insurance now. So that's a big business for them.
Right. Well, you put yourself in a state of high risk, and the
Hmm.
potential for them to pay out on anything that even remotely resembles suicide is
Yeah, because if
you know
people get in
negative.
so much debt, the only way they can help their family get themselves out of the debt, hey, I'll just put a gun into my head and call it suicide, and they'll get payout. No, you don't even get that anymore.
No,
You
no,
know.
that wasn't even an option on the table um, here in the states. Although the social climate has changed, and like I said, they are trying to remove old technology and outdated technology, being a particular couple generations of of what used to be the workforce. Um, I'm just curious as for myself and my own interest is to how far the assisted suicide when it was introduced by Kevorkian and the response it got was actually a pretty heavy response in the pro department here in the states. Kevorkian was looked at by some people as kind of a a, a good thing. You know, they didn't see it as a negative, and then after Kevorkian, it kind of dropped out. So I knew it was going to eventually down the line resurface. Like I said, I didn't know Canada would be the one that would resurface it. But if you're not getting any type of resistance from it in Canada now, then they're going to look at that and probably consider that this is a good way of getting rid of the old technology.
I think Axis, when they bring things to the forefront, they just want to see what pushback they're going to get, because if not, they already know there will probably be still an underground market for that. Here in Canada, because it's OHIP, people think, okay, some people think, oh, it's free. No, no, we pay for it in some indirect way
Right.
or direct way, whether through the budget or future generations. So because we're under OHIP, the reason why they would probably implement it here, because it's not going to come at a cost to the people. See, in America, it would have to probably be privatized. So you would have to pay for it. Here, no, you don't pay for it. At the same time, in Canada here, you could have like a 30-hour wait in the hallway in emergency areas. And people have actually died waiting just to be attended to. And that's by design, or it's just the system has become so messed up, and typical humans, unless you bark loud enough, this is just my job. I know in the last 5 to 10 years, they've spent an enormous amount of money revamping a lot of hospitals, and like in the Toronto area, like a lot of money was spent. It just made somebody more richer. But when it came to the improvement of medical care and all that, no, it's the technology's advanced. And even that, from what I heard recently, some of it they ask for donations for that. So how much are they spending on the hospitals? Outside of paying the people that work there. So I can see why they would have implemented, we'll call it assisted suicide here in Canada first, because of the social system we have here. And it's paid for. So you're not going to get pushback. The insurance wouldn't have to pay for it now. Because now, if you're going to do it here where it's privatized, people might say, well, my insurance, are you going to offer that for me? Here is no, it's going to be flipped. It'll probably come from the budget. And whoever, usually there's only certain types of family that owns most of these hospitals anyway. They're going to make a crap load of money, and they can control it.
You think maybe the insurance companies will adjust to this and give a minimal payout for a suicide, uh, assisted suicide situation, where they might go, okay, you have $1 million life insurance policy, but we're not going to honor any of that. If you commit suicide, but
Mm-hmm.
if you go assisted suicide, we'll give you $10,000. You know,
The fact that you just said that, Access, that's probably a great option. I can see some focus group thinking of brainstorming on that and then crunching the number. Goes, yeah, we like that. How much are they going to have to pay for the insurance? Well, if they're young, we'll give them a certain rate. If they're older and they're high risk, we're going to charge them like $1,000 a month. It's a game. Yeah.
yeah, that's what I was kind of looking at. That is how they could market that properly. I just I see that as being a given option in a few countries before too long. I really see that as more than just a passive uh, type of market. I think that the assisted suicide market is going to become something that is, almost a socially accepted secondary state of death,
Mm.
especially for the older and the impoverished. It's my understanding that you don't even have to be in a terminal state to apply the maid service in Canada. You
Mhm.
can be impoverished and participate in this.
Again, I was saying that the whole ideal of waiting list. You could be waiting for a long time to be attended to. So at that point, especially when they're talking about elderlies, right? Like, knowing women live longer than men, and a lot of it, some of it, this might be tied in with pensioners. In America, if they actually had to pay out all their pensioners tomorrow, America's $300 trillion in the hole, supposedly. So now,
Right.
how do you get that off the books? Either A, you remove everybody that has potential of getting pensions, or you have an economic collapse. That's a different game now. So now, say America loses the war, what do you do with their currency now?
Mm.
It'd be done. A foreign nation would not say, "What? We're not going to honor your debts." Has nothing to do with us. That's why people they quickly will just say the elites they'll use American currency, but they'll quickly put it into some sort of tangible asset. You know,
Right.
that,
Something that
that's
they
what
can
that.
liquidate.
Yeah, they distract everybody. Hey, let's go get gold. Let's go get gold. First of all, whether gold existed or didn't exist, it never really worked before. It didn't help the average person. It helped the elites. It never helped us. So now, for me to even think of going back, oh, it's valuable. Okay, I'm going to have what 4 big stones of gold. I'm going to carry around. Where am I going to put my bullets? First time me and Axis goes to Starbucks to pull out a big nugget. You think we're going to have a tough time getting to the parking lot?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it sounds so romantic. Hey, yeah, invest in gold, invest in gold. Yeah, when times are good. Me and my wife were just talking today about investments. Like she's had investments. I'm like, okay, so let me understand the shoot. In days of old, when we didn't have all this going on, you can invest in something. Let's say something went up from $5,000 to $7,000. Some of these high risk, I guess, she's invested. So that means you almost have to wait till it fulfills itself, and then you can cash it out. By that time, it can go back to 5,000 again. That's one thing. But what happened if you say it goes up to 10,000, you go to sell it, but your currency is now 20 cents to the dollar? That's a different kind of stock going on now. Your currency is devalued where you put in at one time 5 years ago. This is where people play international spot forwarding kind of ideal. Where if you're going to do a transaction with somebody with products and he said, I'm not going to deliver the product like 6 months down the road, well, then I have to do spot forwarding. I got to know that we're going to have the currency at this moment. So that in 6 months down the road, it's a 50-50 chance. It can either go up or go down, but at least I want guaranteed I have an establishment. And this is where America holds most nations hostage because more times not, the only way you can really do spot forwarding is on American currency.
Right. That's by design. That was developed that way through fiat and petro.
Yeah, if we were truly divided nations, not just based on body of water, you would think every nation would have their own, like, I get they play the game, okay, you have a ruble and all that. No, they're all connected to the American fiat currency. If they were literally different countries, no, we don't even deal with you, America. You want to trade us product for product. And this is where I say the elites do that. They don't play with money. They just give us the
Resources.
illusion. That's where hacks.
They play with resources. Um, Money to them would be a pointless endeavor. I mean, they see the fruitlessness of it. But when you're dealing with commodities and assets, as far as land holdings and population percentile financial advantage, that's the games they play.
Yeah, I'm with you, Axis. As we, when people always talk about, or some people talk about, you can only pay a debt with fiat currency. Yeah, they don't have debts. They talk about losses. A whole bunch of my shipping got lost overseas, or a bunch of my chickens, or my, we're not talking a couple of chickens, like a lot of chickens got killed by a tornado. Those are losses for them. They're never in debt. They don't play with debt. That's why they keep on getting wealthy. For us, we're just becoming more poor. Like there's more of us now. Not just me and Axis are getting poor. I'm talking about there's more of us now.
Right. The Denver hospital just turned in. They are 36 million dollars in the hole because of the uh, the immigrant insurgents on the hospital, and they're not able to pay. And Denver hospital is looking at some severe. I mean, they're already taking losses, but they're looking at severe changes in the way that they manage that hospital because of the debt that they're in now.
Well, they say that to us, and this is where I don't know how it is in the States and Canada where they have, nonprofit. So you write a big check at the end of the year so that you classify yourself as nonprofit, so you get even more money from the government. But meanwhile, somebody's, some CEO of the hospital, they say over the board that they're in debt, but there's probably a lot of people becoming very wealthy while they're in the hospital or running those hospitals. So they're probably top heavy.
Right.
To
Oh,
blame. Sorry, go ahead. I was going to say to blame the immigrant as the reason why they're in the hole. No, it's doctors are probably getting paid. They probably have to spend a lot of money on one-time battery usage on these machines, uh, organ transplants, organ removals. There's probably a lot of money to be had in those hospitals.
on the high end, yes, absolutely. Um, that I'm sure. Not only that, but you've got insurance and government assistance that help take up some of that slack on the high end. On the low end, though, it would be a good reason for them to be able to say they are unable to assist certain classes of people now.
Hmm. Yeah, I see where you're
And
going with that, Access. I see where you're going with that.
yeah, yeah, and cut off medical care to a certain generational type people.
Hmm. And that will probably get bigger because the boomers that had money coming in because times were advantageous at the time, where when you go to these American hospitals and okay, you got to go to this wing. Why? Because you got to see financially if you could afford it. Eventually a lot of our generations, even the ones younger than us, they're not going to have those steady jobs. So they're going to say, okay, well, you can't afford it, so you want this other option. It's a little bit lesser, but we can just inject you.
Yeah,
you know
yeah,
Sadly,
yes,
I can see that access. Sadly, but that's where we're at.
yeah. That's what I've been, kind of reflecting on and looking at, in a, a whole social engineering redevelopment of transition that's taking place. Um, and I think eventually that it's going to go from, generational to class to even, you know, your social, we'll call it your social credit standing. Oh, you've reached this particular low, so you need to report to this facility here because you have become inconvenient.
Hmm. Yeah, I think we saw a movie when we were kids. I remember you reach a certain age, like 30 years old, and you got to go into some sort of big play stadium, and then you just kind of like disappear.
Logan's
You.
Run, yes,
Yeah, thank you. That's exactly what that one was. You just disappear. That's it. And then they give you the mark. Kind of like the mark of the beast. Oh, that's it. Time for me to go. Again, that's all social engineered. Convince people that you're no longer useful. But they've been always doing that. Whether it's classifications, you're the working class, educated class. It's just interesting how a small little change for a couple of years, people for some reason think I'm awake now, I'm aware of all this stuff. Not really. You're just getting a little scratch. A lot of this stuff has already been there for the longest of time, and it still continues. I can only imagine what different provinces in China are going through. Or India. Those are the two major
Yeah.
populations of the world. America is a big country compared to Canada, but it's kind of small when you're dealing with those two other countries.
You know, I have watched a lot of my Hindu friends and friends from India, you know, talk about individuals that are taking full advantage of what the fruits of this country still has to offer. I don't, I'm not receiving much from the complaint department when it comes to my friends that are from India or that are Hindu. Um, I don't know if that's through their social engineering or their ethics or discipline, but I know that their communities aren't doing bad at all. Whereas other communities are starting to collapse on themselves to an inconvenience level. I think it says a lot about you know culture
Oh
and
yeah, culture that
how
plays a role.
that culture is adapting itself into the new America.
I guess if you give them freedom of speech, you probably would hear it more. Maybe their culture frowns on that behind closed doors. It's again we're talking about a country that, if not, they still do it. I guess the four class system or the class systems used to have. It might not be as forefront now, but it's probably still there. Population plays a major role, obviously. Here in Canada and America, it's kind of peddled like it's like a prostitute, like, oh, freedom of speech, freedom of speech. Okay, what's the difference of freedom of speech? Because then back in the old days, if you spoke, you just got beat up. Today you can speak, but nothing gets done. So there's your freedom of speech. So there it's kind of like, okay, why would I spend time protesting? There's billions, actually, there's like hundreds of millions of us here. So for me to complain and protest in a major city in India, you wouldn't even get a protest going on. It looks like a protest already in most of those places on a regular day.
Right,
So what
right.
would, we're talking about countries, whether in Canada or America, the cities, even though they're big, they're not like a place like Mexico, where there's 30 million people just in their city. What's New York? Maybe 7, 8 million people, not a little bit more, maybe. And it's still
Even New
a,
York, like Chicago, is going through some massive, massive changes
Mhm.
on their their uh, their social level and their economic and living um, is changing rapidly.
yeah, probably sooner than they're used to. Like for me and you, Access, maybe things would have changed like in maybe a decade, maybe. Nowadays, things change overnight sometimes. Maybe that's a little bit extreme, but at least within 2 or 3 months or weeks. So now in New York, they're probably seeing, like you're saying, bigger change, swifter changes sooner. Maybe even California, the east west kind of ideal.
Well, one that I've really noticed, and I do stay fairly familiar with the indoctrinated social engineering and the religious social engineering is that now um, the Muslim faith is rapidly taking the place of Christianity here.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, there'll be more tolerance, especially when a Muslim gives up following their state, Islamic, so they can come over here and, economics. As long as you want to, like any culture, as long as you want to go by the number one dogma, I would call it commerce. You want to come here and work? Sure. No problem. You want to buy a car? Sure, no problem. You want to go to 7-Eleven? You want to own a 7-Eleven? As long as you're commerce. Outside of that, the churches, no, they're just tax write-offs for, they have their little positions everywhere. Of course, they have to lock all the doors because you don't want the homeless people to show up. You know,
Right.
you know. Sad as I say that, by the way, but whether it's a church, a synagogue, a mosque, but as long as you participate in the land of the free, so they say, and
Right.
home of the brave or whatever. As we're taking, I'm not here taking cheap shots at the citizens of America, but as long as you take stuff from other countries and bring it over here, we're okay. So
Gotta have those trinkets.
yeah, yeah, I'm with you. Some of them can be big. You can call a Rolls Royce a trinket for some of them.
Yeah. Yeah. And status, that particular suit or particular shoe, all the way down to, your impoverished living, but yet they've got $300 pair of shoes on,
Yep. Yeah, yeah, and they're ripped jeans, which is fine. I get it. If it's a fashion, I'm not here to do that. I'm pretty sure me and you've had interesting fashions as we were growing up. So,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
but
I'm
once,
definitely
but
guilty.
yeah, well, I don't know about guilty, but you can relate. But if you think it was guilt,
Yeah.
guilt of charge. What are we talking about? Bell bottoms? Are we talking about skinny jeans? Which one are we talking about? They're all the same. It's a fashion. But again, for me, is once I became aware of some of this stuff, I didn't have one of these. Well, that's wrong. That's right. It was kind of like, oh, where was I during this whole movie? That's what I got from it. Where was I? Once I get into that placement, I'm like, yeah, that makes more sense. How the system, yeah, it has to be run somewhat orchestrated. You know, but I get it. Occasional buddy that will say, well, that's wrong, or how can I have a piece of that? Okay, whatever. If you feel as though you need to get off the fence to pick a side, that's up to you. I'm pretty sure both of them are interesting situations to get in. But I do hear that
Okay.
occasionally, especially online access. I do hear an animosity towards once they find out this system. Oh, it's injustice. It's wrong. I'm pretty sure animals would have a difficult time if they could speak. I said, well, you guys have been treating us like shit for the longest of time, and you actually even eat us.
Well, I
You know,
think where that's you know uh, also even stated with an underlying um, expectation from YouTube is that there was a time where YouTube was an equitable source of income, and you could actually obtain, uh, like some type of status and recognition and a little financial gain. But I see a lot of people not understanding that that particular game is gone now, you know, and they're making complete um, mockery of themselves by trying to pursue that empty course of revenue and recognition. And I'm seeing it play itself out, but it's already something that's coming past. You know, the day of going viral, and suddenly you've got subscribers and you've got recognition and you're the next thing. Well, that that was a trend. It's over.
I guess access. This is my 2 cents. Just because I've studied business, I enjoy studying it. Doesn't mean I'm really interested in practicing it. When I hear people talk about these are my people in chat, well, first of all, they could be potentially your clients, but your client is actually what you offer, whether it's a product or a service. If your clients come to you, they'll give you an indication. If they don't come to you, now you have to do some homework. To really succeed in something like this endeavor, unless you have a rare niche in the market, you have to collaborate with people. You're going to have to form, have a person that's going to do the audio, somebody that's actually going to do the editing, somebody's actually going to do the research. Probably some of the major players um, that basically are doing well on YouTube, they might dress them up to make them look like the average Joe Blow guy or whatever, some guy that's, I can mimic him, but not realizing there's so many people behind them that'll help him, that person become successful. Now, whether or not it's Spotify, I think it's called Spotify, or YouTube, and they're actually making these guys well off just to attract more people to think, well, I'm going to be a person that'll click on a channel and I'll go to Streamline or Zoom or whatever. But unless you're willing to collaborate with people and really hone in on your craft, uh, this is nickels and dimes for these guys. Now, some of them, they can talk for 3 or 4 hours. They think they're going to be a Stern or something like that. But ultimately, you're going to be eaten up, not per se for them. You're going to have so many other people selling the same flea market wares in the same place. And that's what's
Yes,
killing a lot of these small people. Now, they might turn around and say, well, I have 5,000 people watching you. I said, no, they're not yours. Because those are numbers that YouTube could do whatever they want with. And if they want to tell somebody else, we're going to cut a certain market, the only reason why they come and watch you is because they see there's 7,000 people watching. Again, they're just being played with numbers. Opposed to
right.
what are you offering? What content are you offering? Are you sharing just vocals? Are you actually going to do like a how-to video, such as you're going to tear down an engine or something? That's a different one. Are you going to talk like what me and you are talking about? For me, this is just me just chit-chat with you. But I know you use your platform to also to bring some of your own personal works,
Yeah.
But sorry.
If I may quickly, to show the correctness of what your observation, the last song I released, um, almost got 100 views on YouTube, but within the first 24 hours, got 1,300 views on TikTok.
True.
And that told me everything right there. I mean, if you're in this for views and you want to reach people, well, I know what platform I can release a song on now, and within the first 24 hours, get at least 1,000 to 1,300 views.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas YouTube is kind of, you know, a picky bunch of selective individuals that may potentially hear your music, if that's what you're offering.
Yeah, again, this is one of the things. Some people will go to YouTube because they want to see the 1 minute, 5 minute, 10 minute, hour-long video. TikTok is designed for shorter clips, and the people that are producing on there are doing shorter clips. So therefore, it's kind of like music. You know that some music, anything more than 3 to 4 minutes, it's probably not going to be played. So it's the
Right?
same thing with TikTok. So all of that is, if a person puts any effort to study the industry, they'll see the foundation of it. But if they're going to try to force their will, I said, no, you can make or break anybody that's a rapper. We can make a guy that actually doesn't even know how to rap, make him famous as a rapper. So at that
Yeah.
point, people have to understand TikTok is designed for a short attention span of people, and the people that are even the consumers, and they're also the producer. This is like buying something at Amway. More times than not, people that are buying stuff at Amway are also the people that are selling stuff at Amway. So that's what you want. YouTube is doing the same thing. We want the people that are watching it having the ideal that it's so easy, and I'm actually going to have my own channel, which is fine. But will it be something you can sustain and earn money, and then hopefully hire somebody? That determines if you're actually an operator that's trying to help the community. Just working for yourself, just making it for yourself. That's just an individual person that doesn't just want to work for somebody. But if you're actually helping hiring somebody else, whether it's a family member, that there's a chance now it's going to grow. And that's what I see with certain people that do these, higher end YouTubers. They're putting they're using business. They're applying business to that. And they're
Yes.
making it a community. The people that are on their team aren't just the people, well, they come watch my channel. No, that's easy to take away. Somebody can come along and quickly have 3 or 4 people collaborating together. And I'm surprised people don't do it here, maybe because I don't surf other places, where once you just get a bunch of people that do hosting channels and say, okay, today I'm going to do it on a Monday, you do it on a Tuesday, you do it on a Wednesday, give a variety of things, and hopefully, and then promote yourself. Like literally promote yourself, opposed to going to other channels and just acting like a total moron and thinking that'll attract me. I said, but that won't hold them there.
Mm-mm.
That's the difference. Will that hold them there? Because you can even sing amazing songs. It doesn't mean that's going to hold them there. It could just be, it's a genre that I like listening to. Anyway, I went on.
Yeah.
Sorry about
That's all right. I recently tested that with a release of the same song. Um, one was Rattblood Dirty, and one was Rattblood Clean. And the only difference in the song was I put a couple lyrics to the dirty version, and the clean version was just all instrumental. I think I got 7 views on uh, on the dirty one, and I don't know if it was a moralistic approach to me and my music, but the clean one, I think it got I think it got like a hundred views in the same period of time. Same song, just one had a couple lyrics to it, the other one didn't. But it was the title, that they were clicking on, and not the song. Kind of a judgment call towards selective entertainment. It was the same product, just one I titled clean, one I titled dirty.
True.
Told me a lot about the people that were involved with views on my channel. You know, same product, um, just all in the labeling,
Hmm.
and that was such an effect that we're looking at a 93% ratio of difference in views just because of a word, clean or dirty.
Yeah. Again, those are, especially nowadays where you can click all that into a bot, and you might have that capability access where you can monitor, what are these people liking, what are the things that they like. This is why Amazon does so well. And a lot of these things, they know what type of book you like, and they can track you. So some of these people here, regardless of what name they like to use as an icon, they can track them and say, okay, we know exactly with our bot programs, our AI, that you watch Axis, you like that type of music. We have it registered. That's the type of music genre. And then if they see you somewhere else and it's very similar, they can associate that. But for the average YouTuber, the only thing they see is numbers. 30 people watch my video. Okay, but what does that really tell you? Do you know who those people are? Well, not really. So you just know numbers then. And that's why it's very limiting for those people. It'd be
Well, I
nice to
think
know.
that's why
But
they're easily manipulated by YouTube with the numbers.
you're probably right, Axel, but I think people are just manipulating themselves because they're just not aware of all that information, or at least go
True,
inwards. So for
true.
them, YouTube's not manipulating them. They're doing their business. Like Amazon's, their biggest business is gathering information. Facebook is the same ideal. YouTube is the same ideal, gathering information. For whatever end, does it matter? It's no different drones. Drone gathers information. Every time I fly a drone, that's being recorded. Now I can delete it on my phone, but it's still being recorded somewhere else through the
Hmm.
GPS. So now if they want to have drones flying around, hey, damn, Tom, thanks. It's no different like Uber. Uber, when everybody started driving their Uber cars or whatever, I just heard the other day they're going to go bankrupt. So hey, thumbs up. They're always running in the red anyway. So, but everybody's going around driving Uber, and everything's probably being recorded. So when they have wireless, driverless cars or trucks, or whatever, hey, you've done the landscape for us. That's just part of business. When people start understanding it's part of business, oh, it's a bigger picture. Yes. Now, if they want to think one part of it or another part is bad or good, you can't take one without the other. So in this case, YouTube is the machine is probably gathering all kinds of information. They probably even track people to what kind of video games they watch.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure there's a there's even an algorithmic ear to background environment for each person that's using YouTube,
Yeah,
and they're
true.
collecting that information too.
Hey, let's have a panel. Let's do a live panel. Why would you want to do that? Oh, we just want to hear people that are against the system, so we can record that. Okay. And then wonder why, back in the German days or whatever, like, oh, hey, who's the one that were protesting? Oh, yeah, well, we heard that you wore this certain button or whatever. So that tells us a little bit. It's like, think about, what was his name? Malcolm X. Who's to say that them protesting at Washington, D.C. was just to see who's all in the groups? Let's bring everybody overground, underground, overground. You know,
They did that with the Black Panthers.
there you go. You've kind of put it out there. Yeah. We're openly showing, hey, I got pocket aces. I thought we're supposed to play poker here. Don't you have to have at least a hidden hand kind of ideal?
Right. Well, as well as anybody, I offered um, technology, um, developed technology, proven, and it had effects with social media and added a new foreground and a new interface with people, but it wasn't received, and I'm like, you're being subjected to this same shit, and because you don't see it, you're not acknowledging it. I'm showing you the ins and outs and how it works, and even offering the technology, and the best I get is reported. I was like, these people they're so conditioned.
Actually, this is where the waking state gets caught up. That's why when I kind of say, hear each other, but listen from within. Because if they're listening from within, someone's going to say, you just got some information. It's kind of like your your manager. You know, you're hearing it, but your manager's really hearing it, and he's going to talk to you and say, listen, that information that person just gave you is note, it's very valuable. But a lot of times people guard their ego or the attack, and it perpetuates itself because then they can say, well, my ego's always being attacked. Yeah, because you attack somebody else's ego, opposed to listening from within. And something will say, yeah, if you listen to me from within, every time you watch TV, there's subtle music going on in the background, or the LCD or whatever it's called, the lens on the TV, the way it's shaped, the little subliminal message they put in there. That's the thing that's always communicating with the person. So when you're sharing with people, they're probably showing you in a short period of time how they reject themselves on a regular basis.
That's
You
what
can,
I've discovered.
and at that point, it's probably wasted energy on everybody involved. Because as much as you tell them or share with them, you could put it in many different forms. You could even say, listen, there's a gun behind you, so you need to really take this information. No, you can modify somebody's behavior, but that's as far as you're going to do it. And they have to come to their own, and maybe they need to go in this long about way and say, listen, once you figure out the system collapse or whatever you think it is, I don't think the system per se is going to collapse. No different than when people say the world's going to end. I said, for each individual human being, yeah, it will. So that's a given. Unless that's a different type of being that I'm not aware of. But for the majority of us, our world's it's gonna eventually end. Call
Yeah,
it sleep, call it moving on, call it death, call it whatever you want, But people, for some reason, thinking, well, Dominic, but I'm not gonna die. So the day you were born, you're aging, so you're gonna eventually meet that part. So would you like to understand a little bit while you're here? But again, we get conditioned with a lot of programs. I went to school. Yeah, okay. Did you play a lot of sports? Well, yeah. Well, why'd you do that? No, part of me didn't want to get totally indoctrinated. I'm not saying I did. I did that consciously.
yeah, you're right, and Don, there was a particular. It's not associated with YouTube um, platform that took the information I had and they consumed it as if it was a new wine. You know, they ate it up, and so I fed them. I fed them as much information about what I was working on as I possibly could. Now, this may not be the most positive group, that would use this technology that I gave them in a productive way, but they were more responsive and understanding of the value than the people that are going to be victimized by it. And that's it's kind of the story. You know, if the snake is rattling, you might want to pay attention.
You would hope.
Yeah, you would think, but that's not always the case. You know, I think people have been conditioned to be subjected to unnatural sounds, images, um, to the point where they feel desensitized and kind of like numb to its effect. And when somebody brings an extreme version of it along, such as the 5G technology or the smart technology or what I've developed, um, it just integrates itself right in, and they go on unaware that this has actually impacted not only your environment but your state of mind.
So true. Yep.
And I'm seeing a lot of this transpire in the communities that we've managed to find ourselves in here recently. They
Well, sad.
become dulled in the senses.
Well, I don't want to. Well, people can take it for whatever way they want, and if they feel as though they need to react to it or think I've said something wrong, it only validates what I'm about to say. That it's become noise, and it's entertainment noise for a lot of people. The content of bashing each other. Again, even me and you talking about right now, it's still noise, but hopefully this will be something we talk about, and then eventually we can talk about things that we both enjoy, whether it's energy work or discipline, like I said earlier. But I think that's what it ends up being, and hopefully the people that are the ones that are hosting these things, the responsibility is more on them. That's what they bring, and most people that are going to enjoy their channel is the way that it's how it's being run. Because eventually the contents could either go either way. You know, but hey,
Yeah,
again, that's my sorry. My deal is it's a flea market and everybody's selling the same wares. You go to a store now, everybody's selling iPhones or Android covers, kind of things. So they're not even being creative anymore.
no, and to take it to a perspective that I think that you'll appreciate, because I know I do, is just the state of living the experience of even energy and energy work. Um, Instead of questioning, there's energy, and it's a useful thing, and it creates change, um, stimulus, environmental, um, physical. It is something that can be worked with, and it's pliable. Um, that to me is a profound and very broadening state of it being able to expand. But man, um, they. I'm sorry, Dom. I'm trying to retain the concept of this thought, and it's really become elusive to make it practical to just living the experience. Um, if you're forcing your way, or you become kind of a autopilot type person, then that true life experience becomes almost unfelt. And I think that's when you really start questioning, you know, the the nature of why am I here, where am, what is this place, or this, that, or another, instead of enjoying the roller coaster. You know, now you want to know why the roller coaster works. Now you want to know how it's built. Now you want to know what the bolts are that hold it together. But you've lost the concept of just sitting in the roller coaster and enjoying the ride.
Hmm.
And I cherish that ride. To me, that is my reason, for life experience. I don't have to question it. I don't have to even analyze it to know that I enjoy riding that roller coaster. I don't need to know the inner and outer workings of it, though I have a concept and I've got a fairly firm grasp of what I can relate to it. It's the roller coaster ride itself, man. I can speculate at what Arizona's like in the desert, but it wasn't until I got up off my ass and went there and lived it that I could truly say I experienced it. And that means more than any picture or speculation that I could have determined from that environment, the desert.
Yeah,
I
I think
don't
a
think
lot
I
of,
was.
go
Go
ahead,
ahead.
please. I was going to say, I think a lot of people want to have the experience, which is great. I think we should always, lean a little bit towards that, and we do experience things in our own way. But then there's the other person that wants to take a picture of the desert, so then they can say that I did the experience, and I'm also the observer, and I can appreciate both. So now I'm going to put it online for the people that can't actually ever have that opportunity of truly experiencing the desert. This is where a lot of us aren't contributing when it comes to that. We're yearning for the experience, but not appreciating the observations. And when
Right.
people become aware of that, then the bewilderment comes in again, because that's always there. Whether you're seeing it through your own two eyeballs and touching with your own hands, opposed to you're at home uh, putting your hands over underneath a sink and observing a waterfall. You're satisfying the one senses, but you're also seeing it with another senses. And unfortunately, a lot of us have become very lazy. I say a lot of us, we all contribute from moment to moment. Not one individual does it their whole lifespan. And they put too much onus on one person to entertain them, which is fine. But how can anybody on YouTube, one man or one woman outfit, possibly compete with somebody that produces a movie that has thousands of people behind it? Doesn't work that way. So now,
Precisely.
and unfortunately, people just, it's kind of like trying to tell a child, son, daughter, I love you, but you're an amazing singer. But it doesn't, it might look easy when you watch The Voice, but there's thousands or millions of people trying to get on The Voice. Hey, I'm not going to discourage you to learn listening and all that, but don't think for some reason you're just because you thought about it, you're going to become rich. You got to put some effort into it. So it's the same thing here. People come to these channels and they come up with the same. I saw the same movie over and over again. So what was your part in all of that? Are you yearning for a change in the chat, in the panel, or are you just settling for the same thing over and over again? A bunch of guys arguing with each other, which is fine when it was introduced, but now it's become the same widget over and over again. And what are you arguing about? That might be different. Are you playing fair with each other when you're arguing with each other, or trying to overanalyze each other, or competing with each other, which is fine. I think that all plays a role. It's like you're in the music industry. There's many different variations of music. Very different types of poetry being sung. Whether some of it's not even poetry, it's a story, but it's not really a story that can bring any sort of movement for a person in their own personal life outside of their own emotion at that moment.
Yeah, I found appreciation in the fact that I have an extremely diversified range of music that I've produced on my channel. And my contentment and my joy with the experience of YouTube is sharing that energy of that song and maybe somebody else enjoying that song. I mean, it's satisfying on both ends. And I try to diversify myself into, each type of genre or style and sample a little this, sample a little that, create a classical song, create a digital song, create an acoustic song, and just share that experience in that moment of creation. That's a part of my life energy being expressed through tones and sounds. You know, um, I enjoy sharing that, and I enjoy even more when somebody appreciates it and enjoys it. That's my fulfillment.
Hmm. And you're being it too, access. It's kind of like the guy or girl that goes, or woman or guy, man, whatever you want to, different words we can use. I can use here, but where you go to a restaurant, honey, what are you going to have? Well, I'll have the same burger. That's the type of person that's going to go to the chat and have the same type of conversation. Nothing wrong with it. Just know the person that you're talking to. Where somebody else might say, oh, no, I want to try something different today. Oh, so you want a different type of conversation now. We're not really complicated. We make things complicated because we really don't really become aware of oneself and how we work. And once you really truly understand yourself, you'll see yourself in many people. Oh, that person likes variety. Oh, so we'll probably talk about different ways of driving home. Yes, opposed to the one guy or girl that says, no, I do the same thing over and over again, which is fine. You know, Eventually familiarity
Yeah,
might breed contempt. It might. Doesn't necessarily, it will. And then people start wondering why they get angry inside. They start drinking or doing way too much weed. But again, that might cost me a little bit by saying that. But once again, using something as in a way to alter your mindset on a regular basis becomes a problem because now you become dependent on it. It's like pharmaceutical. You just were talking earlier about purging. It might have
hmm
served initially for your body, but eventually it's like, do I want something to take over when I'm supposed to be responsible for me? I can relate to that when it comes to food for me. It's I become habitual in my habits of always eating for the sake of eating. I'm like, but I'm not really hungry. Bingo. I've lost the sense of hunger.
right.
Cause a
Well,
lot
it's
of
like I told you the other day. I took my body to the extreme, um, to almost the point of, I was experiencing arrhythmia,
hmm,
and yeah, I was going through this experience, which was self-induced, but it was to obtain a certain state of mind and a certain state of being that I wanted to experience. And the only way I could get there was through controlled pharmaceuticals, you know.
true.
But that's
Hmm.
that's that's just an approach that I take. It's an artificial way through you know controlled substances, which are legal for me, to get to that state. But I also know the other extreme of being clean. And the discipline comes in whenever you understand that it's time to purge or it's time to binge without denying yourself the experience of both.
Again, this I think hopefully next time we can even talk about it. Sounds like you have a very strong discipline to you. I might be using the wrong word, but that comes to me disciplined. So you know when you can, wean off of something, start using something. In this case, for the body. Like the body needs a lot of things, obviously, and some of it, some of the medicines, for example, whether it's weed or whatever, it serves a purpose. But for some of us, it takes over. Maybe because we have lack of discipline or to understand why we did it, let alone why would we not want to do it anymore. This is
Right.
me learning still for myself as a person. This is why, to me, this is kind of like my classroom to myself as I bounce it off of you. And I know you're going to share your views and you might even pick up things that probably might even help me. But a lot of times just talking about yourself helps me.
Well, I've noticed, we enjoy each other's company. I
Yep.
enjoy learning from your experience, and I notice that you pay attention and learn from my experiences,
Hmm.
and we share that. And sometimes it's almost as if I can feel your experience,
Thank you. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that's whether that be an empath or whether that just be the fact that I've experienced um, so much of what my mind can handle and what it can't handle and my limits that I can reach out without that prejudice and that self protective barrier with you. Some people I just absolutely have to I have to avoid them. But with you, I can share an experience,
Hmm. I
and
can relate.
that's so much appreciated and so much lost with others.
Well, I think for me, maybe you can relate. I says like I can visualize. When you tell me something about the band and what you've done, it's almost like I'm picking out of like the records that are already up there. And I know for me, sometimes when my ego gets in the way, then it's all about me, whether it's positive things, negative things, like, oh, this is me going on a trip. This is me having a problem. When I put all that aside, I can actually just visualize it and take it for what it is. And then that's where I go with the idea. When I'm hearing you, it's a free flowing conversation. When you're talking to somebody that's really stuck in I can't even say stuck in their ego, but being led by their ego. It does serve a purpose, but it shouldn't be always. I mean, even when I'm talking, I still call this the ego, meaning that I'm using a language that's programmed and I'm using it.
Right. It's which is something that we're discussing is the exchange of energy. Some people such as you that I can talk to, and it goes beyond language. It goes to
Hmm.
almost a shared feeling, and that energy is emotion. And
Yes.
I'm not so consumed by preconceived or idealistic interpretations or even speculation that I can feel just the pure nature of what we share, and it
Hmm.
allows me to experience it on a, a level beyond language.
Yeah, I'm with you, Access. It's like I know even if like when we've done it, like even when we have our videos on, I know if we were in each other's presence, we probably wouldn't even be interrupting with each other. It would be an intuitive, or we would be picking up body language to realize, okay, Dom has something to say, Axis has something to say, or we would have a third buddy in there, and like we got a sense that what I mean. We pick it up, you know. To do it through a monitor, I think we still can, but we're limiting it, you know, for whatever reason. Maybe because I'm not used to it yet. That could be my thing. Maybe you're more used to it, where when somebody wants to say something or something important that's going to arise from that conversation.
I I tend to yeah I have an etiquette, I guess. Sometimes I do have something to say that I feel is a little more important than other things
Mhm.
that I say, but I do try and exercise some type of etiquette and control over intrusive behavior. Um, to me, that is almost an insult whenever you become to the point where you're even interrupting your own sentences. And I've seen this. I have
So
seen people speaking and they will interrupt themselves mid sentence.
so true. It's like their inner communication said, "Shut the fuck up" to their outer external. Yes, I have to monitor that even myself. Yeah, people will actually interrupt themselves. I'm like, but that might, in a way, if we were buddies, I would say, okay, you're revealing something about you. I'm here to assist you, maybe bounce back off of you, and because, some people would get, it will even entrench them more to defend themselves. What do you mean? I'm like, do you want me to tell you a feedback how it is from the outside hearing you? And I get it. Some people, I've been in those kind of conversations, but a lot of times it's hit and miss, where people aren't really looking for feedback. They're looking for approval. or they're looking for something to argue with, which is fine. I'm okay when if somebody openly said, "Listen, Dominic, I like to argue." No problem. Thanks you for telling me in advance. It's like telling me you're a friend or a foe. I'm not interested. And even if they say, "Why not?" Because I'm not good at it. So go find somebody that will help you become better at it. I'm not interested in arguing, a view that I have.
Yeah, I was when I caught this being repeated with different individuals. I checked myself for a second, and I was like, "Whoa, what? At what state of mind are you in whenever you interrupt your self speaking and you change the flow of the conversation mid sentence, and then you start repeating this behavior? You become incoherent."
Yeah, and if they're around people that are doing the same thing, they're going to think that's normal, which is fine. Again, it's one of those things where I'm okay. I enjoy sharing views or sharing points. I'm not interested in proving points, but I'm at that point in my life where some people that might come more naturally for them, maybe, or just something they grew up with, and other people have to work at it. But for those other people, best thing I could ever say to them is, say, if you want to play tennis, and me and in this case, Axis are playing soccer, go look for somebody else that wants to play tennis. Yeah, but I don't like soccer. I said, this is not about degrading whether soccer is good or not. Go look for somebody that wants to play tennis. Some people don't realize how much they're still in that child view where they think if they don't get their way, they have to denounce somebody else. Well, you don't want me let me play with it, so I'm going to break it. Why would you do that?
Right.
You're giving them an honest chance to maybe explain themselves. Because after that, we should literally, especially when we're adults, that should be a one strike rule. I just won't hang out with you anymore. Why? I'd be wasting my energy, and I'll probably be wasting your energy. But again, that's what these dynamics are happening now on this particular thing. I'm pretty sure it'd be no different if we went to family functions. It's like, hey, let's stop arguing now. Let's just focus on the kids. Why are you talking about the kids? Because some people just don't know how to communicate with each other, and
And
that's part of the rules. Go ahead.
that's what I'm wondering is if this it's something that's being developed because of social media and the way that people are interacting on social media, that this phenomena of interrupting your own sentence come into play, or whether this is just something that I I hadn't really noticed before because I haven't really been around it or subjected to it until recently. That I started going, what? You know,
Cage.
how you do that?
I guess actually it'll be like you're in a band. Obviously you've been in a band. You did a lot of practicing. Am I off by saying that, or am I dead on? Okay.
Yeah,
So you did. So now, hey, we're gonna perform, guys, in this big auditorium. We haven't practiced at all. So I'm gonna play this note. You're gonna play that note. That's exactly what's going on in a lot of these places. They're not working together because they're not practicing when they're not online with each other, let alone with their friends or their family. They might not say, okay, I don't have anybody that ever talk about these kind of conversations. I said, but let's say you do. Have you ever even practiced in other areas how to communicate with each other? Forget about the topic. No, not really. I said, this is why it's disarray. Imagine you being on stage and you're playing one song and your buddies are playing something else. That's exactly what's going on here. And eventually
yes,
you might as well just say, listen, this is not about right or wrong. We're just not in harmony with each other. We're not even playing the right song. So we don't even know if we're in harmony. So when these people are arguing, oh, I don't agree with you, and then they start doing the name calling, and then they think the conversation should continue when you just insulted another person. No, conversation's over at that point. Yeah, but you didn't understand. I said, doing a tantrum like a child, the best I could do is either ask you to go in a corner or go in your room. And I'm making sure there's not all the technology in your room. Well, Dominic, I'm an adult now. I said, but you're acting still like that. there's no way I'm going to have a conversation with somebody if they're name calling me. I'm going silent at that point. What I'm really
Right.
saying is I'm not going to engage. But if somebody starts arguing even louder, I said, so you're going to try to be the louder dog. I said, you're losing the battle now, because if that person was doing it on purpose, they've won. But what happened if they're doing it and they don't even realize that's their habit? I'm just keeping quiet so you can actually hear yourself. Dare not me even ask them eventually. So listen, how did that serve? And who did it serve? And if they're aware of themselves, it served their self. So where in your life did you grow up thinking that for some reason you never got hurt, as you're doing the same thing to yourself right now?
Yeah.
It's a perpetual
Yeah.
cycle. Person gets molested. Some of them have to understand it, so they do it to somebody else, or they do it to themselves. And I'm not talking about molestation sexually. I'm talking about they'll abuse themselves in other ways. Some people start becoming cutters. Other people start drinking because they're harming themselves. They're keeping it alive. And that, well, I'll use the term inner child, is thinking, I don't trust anybody. Why? Because the adult that's I'm now, I don't trust myself. Only thing I could
I,
do at that point, Axis, is keep quiet. Sorry, I'll do that right now, actually.
that's true, Dom. I'm right there with you. I like to experience my inner child, and I have a great relationship with my inner child. We grew together through many different situations and developed. Um, and I'm wondering, which is another phenomena that I've noticed, is there are particular individuals that I've kept my eye on during the course of an entire 24 hours, and within that 24 hours, they have made it to you know 5, 6 different platforms and stayed there until that platform ran out, and they closed the stream down, and then they move on to the next one.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking 24 hours of complete deprivation of sleep and repeating themselves with the same platitudes in 5 different channels over and over and over. Are they actually hearing anything? Or has this just become the state of being that they are now familiar and comfortable with? Is they can't function unless they're sitting in a chat room.
It could be, some people that, they do drugs all that time, or they work all, I mean, maybe not, they don't work 24/7. Dopamine rush, I can relate to the dopamine part, whether it's playing video games, poker, porn. I'm trying to think of some other things, that music, it's obviously from the outside, most people can relate and say, we know it's not healthy, but yeah, we still do it. Whether in this case, you're using that as an example, and they do the same thing over and over again. It's no different like going to a job 8 hours or 10 hours or 14 hours and doing the same thing over and over again. That's basically what we've become. The ones that are able to not have to do that, they're probably few in numbers, but there's probably lots. Could be millions of people that they can do a variety of things. But
That
what I'm getting, what you're saying, that is, but it becomes engraved. This is how habit gets formed. Some people can do it in a shorter period of time. They'll do a bunch of 24 hours, and next thing you know, they formed a habit, positive or negative, or healthy or unhealthy. That'll be a
well, that's
conversation
what
that
I'm.
person. Go ahead. Sorry, my apologies.
That's that's what I was kind of observing is you know some of the people that I've noticed that are doing this have nothing but just platitudes to offer. They never have any substance to their responses. Though they've been in 5 different rooms within a 24-hour period, they're still doing the same uh, 3 or 4 word platitudes that they just done in the 3 previous channels. And I'm wondering how numb that person has become to the life experience.
Well, from my experience, I know I've been numb, and I still am to a certain point. I catch myself every so often too, whether it's in smaller chunks or bigger chunks. I've done that with work, done on online. Um, how to get out of it? It goes from one dependency to another. It takes people that care, preferably, hopefully, the one that actually is doing it to care. Because you can have a loved one do as much as they want. You can have even mates, but it comes down to the person themselves and say, okay. And this is where even group helps. They've done studies where, with mice anyway, where you get a bunch of mice together, they'll wean off whatever drug you give them because it's a group kind of ideal. A lot of people are isolated at home. They're looking for some sort of connection, and they end up settling for a weird, twisted sense of connection, such as sarcasm, name calling. You know, they're not, people start actually using their names, their real names. Then at least people could say, listen, whoever this character is that's been doing all that barking, let me find out who they are. And then they'll realize in a short period of time, I'm not going to endorse that person anymore. But they hide behind these icons. Everybody, a lot of people do.
Yeah.
Which is fine. But in that case, it could be, I can't even say forgiven, but if what you offer, a person can note and say, oh, that was something that Axis shared. No, thanks, Axis. I'm going to really, do some of that thinking on my own. Maybe I'll jump to another YouTube or look at a book forum or talk to my buddies about it. I just heard a buddy of mine talking about this. Can you tell me what you guys think of this? Again, that's another form of community, but that's been so separated in so many ways, and a lot of it has to start with the person that actually, if they're yearning it, then they have to form that themselves. Can't expect to have a baby and think, okay, that's my community. No, that's your child that you're going to hopefully raise, that already is going to be in a community that's already established. These communities, they can call it whatever they want. They like to use the word truth community. I'm like, truth in what sense? That a lot of people are so scattered here, maybe, but I heard one person, I forget what the word he used. It's just a place where we come to have conversations. A great opportunity to learn how to communicate with each other. Like for me, I know from my own personal perspective, and I've shared with you a couple of times, I will not tolerate people name calling. I just won't. What does that say about me if I'm going to accept that? I'm not the one that forced him to say that. And let's say, even if he did say Dominic, but isn't that who you are? I said, that would have been better served privately. I'm not interested in laundering my shit outside in public, but I will share it privately. That's just me. And I know there's like no rules of conduct in most of these channels. It would be nice if there is. That's why they have to have, when you phone like a telephone company or whatever, they basically tell you this is being recorded. And on top of that, some of them say they won't accept rude behavior. You start yelling me you start yelling me at a job. I'm like, I don't get paid enough for this shit. Yeah, but you're getting paid. Right. I said, I don't tolerate this, But I think some people, sorry.
I have a bad tendency of speaking my mind when it comes to whether it's being recorded or not with the doctors and healthcare services, and I don't hold punches back, man. And they probably got me saying some pretty horrific shit on some of these different recordings. I just get frustrated at it.
Mm-hmm. I guess actually, since you brought that up, I think when we get upset and we go out of, I'm going to hope most people are going out of character when they start getting upset. They're in pain of some sort. So for you, you're probably in pain when you're talking to these doctors and you're not being heard. Give me different possibilities. So some of these people that come on, the ones that are the loudest ones, they're probably the ones in the biggest pain. But most of us are treating like, well, not most of us, but some people are treating like a Rocky Horror Show. Like, oh, that's all being staged. No, they're actually hurting. They just don't know that. And if you allow it to continue, if they do enough damage, it's kind of like the lion with the thorn. Eventually, when the lion no longer has that thorn in his hand because somebody was brave enough to pull it out or it just came out, they have to be removed because they've done too much damage. But everybody else, oh, this is funny. So-and-so's coming. No, cut it right then and there. Take it privately. What's really going on here, buddy? Why the hell do you think you need to go on and start ripping into another woman or a man? You think that's appropriate behavior? Regardless if you think you're right or wrong, is that appropriate behavior? You start doing that in a restaurant, police, imprisons you because of that bad behavior. And no, now they're going to think it's a badge of honor. I spent some time in jail. Yeah, because you're an idiot.
Well, I got to see the lowest um, belly crawling denominator on YouTube whenever I had presented the situation with my son, and I even, my daughter, who I'm completely proud of, and they became targets of attack. And I realized that I was dealing with the lowest demeanor of human there
Mm-hmm.
is.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
I don't share any information where that's concerned because I don't one is I don't want to have to sit and observe someone ridiculing themselves with their own just insistent nasty bottom feeding behavior, but I'm not going to give them that energy to feed off of.
Mm-hmm. I'm with you, Access. No, somebody could turn around and say, "Yeah, but he committed a crime, or somebody committed a crime." I said that still doesn't entitle you to add to it by insulting. If you have nothing positive to say, don't you don't have to say anything. Sure, a person does something harmful, unless it's life threatening. And in this case, let's say somebody did commit a crime, it's murder. I'm choosing that as an example. It still doesn't give bystanders the right to start doing this finger pointing crap. He's still another. He's one of us. He's another human being. Might have messed
The
up. Doesn't matter
saving,
who.
yeah, the saving grace to that, Dom. I'm sorry for interrupting,
No,
but
no, go ahead.
was the people that offered their prayers and their positive input towards the situation and their best hope. And the ones that volunteered that without me asking, I look at those people a little differently now. And I see them as a more compassionate and understanding type of YouTube personality as opposed to that lowest demeanored and denominated person.
Hmm.
So, it really put a line in the sand.
Hmm.
But the ones that did offer up, their prayers and their condolences, I really felt that. That really meant something to me, and it even kind of they they kind of atoned the situation that I didn't become, overwhelmingly distressed that someone feeding off of that low level energy.
Hmm. Well, those people. Some people reveal how racist they are. What do you mean? Well, a parent didn't commit the crime. Unless they find out later on there was neglect and all, that's a different story. So the parent didn't commit a crime. The child or somebody committed the crime. Okay. So if you were going to give them their condolence or give them some energy, best wishes, or not even best wishes in this case, hope you get better. They're giving it, doesn't matter who committed the crime and who got murdered. You're giving it to the other people that are going to be affected by it. Now,
Hmm.
somebody could turn around and say, okay, well, Dom, what about Hitler? Hitler didn't kill anybody. He got a whole bunch of other people, convince other people. Now, he's one of our own, meaning that he's another human being. So where was the check and balance with him, let alone all the other people? Because there's a lot of people, captains, foot soldiers, everybody participated in all of that. But again, this is the typical of human race. Sometimes they're looking for somebody outside of themselves because it is a single person that they need to blame if they want to blame anybody, and it's not outside. But yet they want
Right.
to blame Stalin, Caesar, Alexander. I shared you a while back. Like I watched a documentary on Edward the Eighth, I think it was King Edward the Eighth. I'm like, okay, the fact that I'm calling him a king, but the whole ideal was when he got in one of his little moods, off with their heads. How do you convince a whole kingdom to agree with that shit?
The
It'd be
enablers,
different if,
yeah.
yeah, it'd be different if he's like, okay, King, you just killed another person. You beheaded him. We're gonna have to take a sword away from you. No, he has other people getting paid in some fashion, whether food, women, whatever they want to talk about, and vice versa. That's the herd mentality right there. Forget about the one guy that sticks out. Oh yeah, well we found out he's a little bit of an autism person. Yeah, he's a pretty smart character, or he's a little bit of a psychopath. Yeah, but where's everybody else in the participation in all of that? They're on the
And
sideline, like as though I'm watching chat, like I'm watching the people talking. I see the consistency in some people. Some of them are pleasantry, some of them are just sarcastic, which is fine as long as it's consistency. At least they know where they stand. But it's the waivers that go back and forth. Well, I think this person's favorable, so I'm going to like them. Like as though they're watching a sports team and then they turn around and say shit like, it's my sports team. You can't afford those teams. It's easy to say it's my sports team, but would you pay that person? Well, no. So then stop saying that shit. But hey, they're going to still do what they're going to do and say what they're going to say. But they're not somebody, whether it's you, me, or somebody else, just challenge what they say. I'm not challenging them. I'm challenging what they say. But for some people, they think whatever they say is them. They're thinking they're wearing sunglasses. Nobody sees me. No, I see you. You're just wearing sunglasses. But who are you truly? Are you one of your
right,
personas? And in this case, whether it's I'm a YouTuber, I'm an electrician, I'm a plumber, I'm a singer, those are all masks. And you can enjoy those things, but realize you have many of them.
I think I just made a comparison here recently to a YouTube personality, almost as if he's pleading to a parole board,
Mm,
and you know, it, it's become so ingrained in that persona that every time I see this person, they're truly exposed in the light of that now, and I can understand, where some people would fall into the kind of the sweet talking, flower language, with the occasional thunderstorm, but the underlying purpose is they're trying to sell themselves.
hmm And that
You
can
know,
come in
I,
many forms. They're either selling themselves for some financial gains, approval, lack of security. It comes in many forms, and people will consume many of them.
I'll sell my image as a musician and my music and that imagery as a marketable commodity. It's an art. It's a marketable thing. Music is marketable. Music videos. But as far as trying to convince somebody that my concepts, ideals, beliefs, or even the life I've led is something that someone else needs to endeavor in, I try to stay away from that as much as possible. I
Mm,
don't want people following me into my uncertainty or more or less my speculation, and if they want to hear my life experiences and maybe, you know, uh, develop a broader sense of thinking from that, then great. But I don't suggest that anybody follow my path in life because probably they would either be completely insane and housed in a mental facility or they'd be dead.
yeah, yeah. If you're on those channels where a lot of musicians get together and other people that are potential, they could be like the student, whether in the chat or whatever, or watching it recorded. And of course, things like music or sports, a lot of people grew up with entertainment, so they're going to perceive that. Where if a whole bunch of people start coming in as psychiatrists or whatever, sharing things, a lot of people aren't going to really be interested in that kind of stuff unless they're having a crisis in their own life with somebody they perceive as a problem. So again, it's one of those things where people have to realize for themselves, why are they there? Are they there to learn something? Are they there to entertain? Because a lot of the stuff in these channels are becoming like those, what are they called? There's surreal or live TV shows they have, like The Bachelor or the uh, Survivor and all that. It's all staged.
Right.
So they think there's no consequence behind it. Yeah, because when you're reacting, realize how much, if you're responsible, you realize you have to be accountable, regardless if it's staged or not, because you're going to be an influence on other people. And a lot of these channels, as small as they are, but it's still a pulse of humanity. There's a lot of influence going on, positive or negative. I don't want to like to use negative or positive, but healthy or unhealthy, and it's I just shake my head sometimes. My video, I know my video is not on, but I shake my head. I'm like, is this is what this community is shooting for? And I'm talking about the communities that me and you circulate. Now they could be offended
Right.
all they want, but the offense shouldn't be based on words. It'll be based on, are you participating and how are you participating? Would you want to be able to give that same advice or that same name calling to a child, let alone your mother, let alone your aunt or your uncle? If you are, then you're consistent at least, and you probably have no friends. But if you're the kind of person that says, well, I don't have any friends, have you ever tested why you don't have any friends? Because your enemies probably won't even hang out with you. Your acquaintance will, because they don't have to live with you. But true friends and true enemies will say, listen, I want to get to know who you are. But for a lot
Yeah.
of them, I get the impression some people just don't want people to know who they are. Obviously, the fact that they don't, we use these icons, we don't use our real name. That tells it. Well, I use my real name, but maybe that's naive on me. But it is not naive on me. I think it's more naive on the other people. Wouldn't you want people to get to know you? Well, no. So then why do you make it personal then? That would be the first question I would ask him privately. Then why do you make it personal? You haven't put any skin in the game. I'm not into agreeing or disagreeing. I'm more into keeps. What can I keep from this conversation? Agreeing or disagreeing, that's just a pissing contest.
Right. And one I approached here recently and found to be um, kind of an interesting situation for me is I added real time consequences to social media.
Mm-hmm.
And, and what had happened was that I got turned in twice in the physical world, the real world.
Mm.
So, you know, my anonymity and my lack of location became a matter of survival at that point. But I couldn't believe that on two different occasions, these tough talking, throw words around, all of a sudden here's real time consequences and you want to run to the authorities? You're a demeaning little coward. You talk a hard game, but when it comes to a hard game, you run and hide behind the authority.
Oh, there is people that are, what is it, ego spiritual or spiritual ego? They're harmed, they're hurt, they're vengeful, they're harmful to themselves. So they talk a mean game, and then when push comes to shove, would they be upset if, or at least learned a lesson if somebody did it to them? Obviously, for you, you've learned something from it. From other characters, no. And that's the whole thing. The persona is so strong now that they live and die by it, and then they wonder why they're isolated, and they make up stories. Everything's a story, really, but those stories, some of them just aren't healthy. And I get it. And the onus should be on the community. Because if person's going to say one person's going to save us, well, then we're going to say one person's going to be the downfall. No. So then why do we put so much emphasis on the one? It should be within oneself, yes. But when you're in a group of other people, you're just another part. It's just when we allow people to think that they're going to be kings or psychopaths or all that, this is where it gets distorted. You give that power to any individual person by themselves in the desert, okay, all the power to you. In the jungle, all the power to you. But when it's around a whole bunch of other people, now we have a problem or a potential of a problem. So whoever did that
Right.
to you, Axis, is revealing something about them. Does it need to be spoken to the community? No, especially when the community actually endorses that kind of behavior, or at least, they're just revealing how indifferent we have become as a species. That's the dangerous part. It'd be nice when a person at least argues with you and it's a fair or it's a passionate argument. It's usually when people are indifferent. That's the bigger problem. They just don't care.
Well, it's
They
like
don't
I
even.
said, man. I've got to see the lowest belly crawling denominator, and it came from YouTube.
Well, and you've probably been in other industries, so you could probably validate that because you've probably seen a lot of different characters, even in the music industry.
Yeah,
So, I'm pretty sure if people start experiencing that with their families or political people or whatever industry, you might find different kind of characters. I'm not saying that you should forgive them. You should forgive yourself if you feel as though you want to harm them. So again, I know the certain characters that you talk about. I just stay clear of them if I can avoid it. Just because it's a waste of energy, both for me and probably for those other person.
that's what I've determined.
Yeah, it might still be a challenge, because and I try not to think that everybody that I meet after that are going to be like those people. No, I try to treat everybody in the same benefit of the doubt kind of ideal. But I'm still going to say to myself, but how did I feel about when I was around that situation? Didn't enjoy it, but I knew enough to go silent.
That's that's been my means of defense here lately. Is I'm just not going to give it the energy.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
feel that the, most of the individuals on here are so lost from themselves that it would just be like throwing a rock in the ocean.
yeah.
It's
It
not.
is. It's just pebble, a rock, a pebble,
Yeah,
a feather. Yeah.
yeah.
I find for myself, Axis, the reason why I don't defend myself because I realize I gauge in myself inside. I said I haven't done anything to occur this, and then once I keep quiet, I realize, oh, they're playing defense attack with themselves. That's why
Hmm.
I just go silent because that's a perpetual cycle. You get a gun to protect yourself. That's the same gun that's going to attack. You're going to encourage it.
Yeah,
And if you don't participate, then at that point, you can just see it for what it is. You observe it. Those two things, these two things shall pass. They're not mine to own. And even the person that actually is doing it, it doesn't even belong to them. They just think it's theirs. I don't agree with you.
hmm,
Oh, okay. I agree with you. Oh, okay. I'm going to give you the same stance either way. Well, Don, why don't you agree with me? I said, I'm not here to feed your ego. The best you can ever do for me, and I say this to my buddies, the best you can ever do for me is show me respect by at least hearing me out. That's it. Outside of that, you telling me you agree or disagree, that's your ego talking. I'm asking you for just to hear me. I'm not I'm not looking for approval. If I wanted a dogma, I'll go to a religion, I'll vote. I'll go to state, I'll start playing the flat earth and globe game. That's approval seeking. And that's all that is. That's approval seeking in my interpretation. Now, somewhere along the line, person could turn around and say, "Well, Dom, but the Earth is flat." I said, "Hey, you been high enough?" Well, if I met an alien and Axis met an alien, how do we convince you? It's the same thing if you went up high enough. I said, I'll entertain the ideal because we'll entertain sports. I'm not the one that's participating. There's an outcome to it. I'm not interested in outcomes as much as I used to when I was a kid because I didn't know better. Now, once I become aware, I have to give some of those child things away, but I'll still do every so often. What are you going to do this weekend? Oh, I might watch 5 minutes of football.
Well, to see somebody become so passionately disrupted by speculation, it still confounds me. You
Proving
know,
a point with and sorry guys, proving a point out of assumption is one thing. Proving a point with all kinds of backup data, to me, it's still noise. Because the question I'd be saying to myself, how does this serve me for a guy telling me over and over again, well, I'm an astronaut. I know how to, okay, here we go. First of all, you told me you're an astronaut. The grandstanding is always a fun giveaway. I'm a doctor. I'm a nurse. I'm an atheist. Okay, well, what does it mean to be an atheist? I don't believe in religion. Okay, I'm an ant hater. What does that mean? I just don't like ants. Okay. Why don't you like ants? Because there's one red ant a long time ago bit me that he shouldn't have bit me. So then you don't like any ants? Yeah, I'm racist that way.
yeah,
I say
one
that joke.
dog bit me, so they all bite.
That's it. That's right. I get it, and that's where f- first impression shouldn't be the only impression. But I get it for some people. That's it. I don't like those people. Why don't you like those people? Because they look at me funny. Okay, so you don't see the fact that you make it all about you.
Yeah.
I, I'm pretty sure you had to do a lot of fun stuff as being in the band or being on tour. And if you weren't getting paid, I as a buddy would be questioning. So then, why do you keep doing it? I really love it. Okay, what part do you love? Getting told what to do that you don't enjoy it, or just because you like to sing? You have to have some sort of medium there.
Yeah, and that's the thing is once I did become, it become lucrative to me, it wasn't fun no more. But when it wasn't lucrative, it was, a lot more hedonism. And that's
Hmm.
why I was there. The power of music, the rush and adrenaline of the stage, the girls,
Hmm.
the free booze, the drugs,
Hmm. Yeah.
the madness of it all, just every sense of, you know, stimulated. But when it became lucrative, it became a job. And I lost a lot of that hedonistic approach to it. It
Hmm.
became refined. How's that?
Yeah, well, we've joked about this before, and I'll just say it now because I'm pretty sure you get a chuckle. It wasn't because you had to sing the same song over and over again. That wasn't that kept you in there. It's
Mm-mm.
like me doing the same plug over and over again, or the guy that has to do the same lawyers things over and over again, or going into the same emergency room. There is a redundance in what we do, and usually we end up settling for everything else around it. You know, the money, the food, the drinking, the prestige. But when you go to the core of it, the doing the same thing, hoping for a different result, is a form of insanity.
Yeah.
And we do it in so many professions. That's why we get gravitated to something like this, where we do want to connect with people, even though we bring the same insanity, going to the same channels or different channels and hoping for a different result. Well, maybe this one will be different. No, it'll be the same old, same old. But are we going to stand for it?
And the more refined channels, you can see the evidence of a loss of that spontaneous hedonism. It's
Hmm.
almost like you said, it's become production and it's marketable.
Yep. Like you said, you have a diversity even with music. I have a diversity on YouTube. I watch all kinds of other stuff. A lot of it's podcasts, and I enjoy it. And then there's other ones where people do it, invite other people, and it's regardless of how many people come and watch it, it's diverse. You know, I come to some of
Yep.
these particular communities because I'm familiar with some of the people there, and I've enjoyed some of their company. So it's not their company that I'm having an issue with. It's what we're talking about and how we talk. Like I said, name calling for me, that's just my personal stick. It's not tolerable. It's to me, it's no, it's not tolerable. It's not tolerated. That's the best word. I'm not going to allow it or accept it. I'd be an idiot to do that way. Now somebody could turn around and say, "But you keep coming." I said, "Because there's other things to the community. It's like going to a restaurant. It's not just the food. It could be the ambiance or whatever it's called. It could be the band that's playing. It could be I like the people that serve there. So, but you get that occasional person. Can't say they wreck it for everybody else because the onus is on everybody else. Are we really encouraging behavior that's not really acceptable in most environments?
And they, I hate to say it, man, but in certain platforms, bad behavior has become almost a promoted. Um, Though they say they don't promote bad behavior, that's the source of their biggest draw, and they play on it whether they recognize it or not. They endeavor towards it.
Hmm. Yeah, they become like big corporations where somebody will say, "Well, Dominic, I'm only after the numbers." I said, "Okay, so never have a conversation about Nike then." What do you mean? Because that's their platform. They don't care about the customers. They care about sales. And if you already go
Hmm.
across most industries, I don't care if it's music industry, it's about numbers. So they're not really encouraging their customers. It goes right back to the governments. Then they really don't care about the people, the citizens in this case. They care about numbers. They care more about the machine than they actually do about the parts. So when a guy that runs a channel says that shit, I'm like, you don't understand business, do you? Because if you did, you just told me the business platform of most businesses. So why are you trying to promote caring about humans then? Now
Exactly.
they might turn around and say, yeah, well, Dom, I'm only doing that because you saw somebody else at the flea market selling that same product. You don't understand business. But yet they want to understand how to be without rulerships, or they want to actually profit or whatever. Now, there are some people that are actually on that are hosting certain channels. They do talk about that, but for a lot of people, it's over their head. It's beyond their scope. They're just coming from a point of view. I've saw TV. I've seen the lifestyle of the rich and famous. I want to be rich or famous, but yet I don't want to do the works. What would the work be? First of all, be aware. Understand the
Or the
environments. Understand the system.
responsibility.
Yeah. Most of those things back in the day, we would have to go, even today, you'd have to go to the library, get some of these resources and all that. Today, you can just go online. A lot of that information is there, and PDA forums or whatever. You can learn how to do a business plan. You can learn how to take an engine apart. All that information is out there. So we can't use niscient. You can't say, oh, I don't know. I don't know if that's out there. Sure, it's out there. You're even walking with the device. So then once they become aware, then they can decide if they want to apply it. And then maybe discover it's beyond my scope. Then I can appreciate the mechanic that much more now. When I bring my car to the mechanic, I do the research way before that. The cost, what it would take, no different when I tell my buddies when they want me to do electrical work. I said, no, I'm not going to do this. You want something for nothing? Oh, no, I'm going to pay you. I said, no, that was back in the day. Today, do your research. Because I don't want to hear you
Hmm.
haggle me about the cost of the material, what my hour is. I said, if I do a job and it took me an hour, but it took me 20 years to learn my craft, and I narrowed it down from 4 hours down to an hour, and I'm pretty proficient of it, I don't want to hear you trying to what? Cheat me on the money? I said, no. Do you run your own business? How do you run it? Well, then treat me no different. And that's the same thing we should be demanding almost on these platforms. Quality.
Right. It's like I was saying with the views on TikTok. You know, I, I like the fact that 1,300 people listened to my last song. That that was within the first 24 hours. That was must have been a pretty good song for that many people to have listened to it. But then I come back to my YouTube platform and I'm like, obviously it wasn't offensive enough or didn't have controversy behind it because it you know it got views but not what something else would have gotten if I would have put dirty behind it or clean or marketing.
The thing is, YouTube is a certain denomination. TikTok's a little bit different. Like we were saying, I was sharing earlier, the duration of the videos are different. Um, YouTube would be like $1. TikTok is like $10. So you just have to multiply the numbers. And the people that go back and forth, like people that used to get paid, and I still think they do get paid, or get rewarded in this case, if you have a 10-minute video on YouTube opposed to a 20-minute video, because now they're going to target it. They're targeting how they slip in marketing, advertising of some sort.
Right.
TikTok is just a different kind of breed. They're probably getting more information to say, okay, these are the impulse kind of people that come to watch this kind of stuff. They might not advertise on those things. They might, but at the same time, they're getting a sense and they read how people go through that kind of stuff. So whether it's you with a 3-minute video or somebody showing a 3-minute video on how to clean carpets, they're getting that number down pat. It's like you're in the music industry, so you know that music sell quite well when they're around the 3 to 4 minutes,
Yeah.
opposed to a 7-minute video. I'm like, 7-minute video? I mean, a song, forget about video. Like 7-minute song. Holy fuck, are they doing like a Euro beat or something? A mix of some sort?
Right. Like in the old album days, you'd have that one 5 to 7 minute track on that album,
Yep.
and
Yep.
it was either a wonderful thing or it was a miserable thing.
Yeah, or they do like their records. We'll say YouTube is the A side of a LP and a 45 LP, and the B side would be the TikTok version. It's
Yeah,
like a lesser song, whatever. So, but hey, for you, if it motivates you, and yes, okay, I got way more views here. YouTube's becoming really spread thin now, and I'm pretty sure there's other ones, Discord, I don't know, or Spotify in this case. It's like anything else. Once the technology takes on, everybody wants it. Everybody uses it, especially when it's done this. It makes it look so easy. Oh, I think I could have a YouTube channel too. Oh, okay, but can you maintain it? Can you grow it? Like I've seen Judith, she spends a lot of effort on editing to a point where she's actually become a really great editor. But it takes a lot of effort. It's not like okay, I'll
yeah.
click it and leave it.
I never farm my channel. Um,
Mm-hmm.
well, I don't farm my TikTok either or my
Mm-hmm.
Facebook. I allow it to just speak for itself, and
Mm-hmm.
whatever happens, there happens. I do use it as a social experiment sometimes, um, just just to get a temperature or a
Mm-hmm.
pulse reading. But I don't, it's not something I step back and farm. I think if I farmed it, I would no longer enjoy it.
Yeah, true. Well, again, you're in an industry like you have those one hit wonder. They're probably bands that have been around for a long time or singers, but they have that one moment where they had like a top 10 or a one, and then there's all these different genres of music. So YouTube would be no different. It's the same platform, I think. It's just done differently.
Yeah, I
It's,
got one song that's got 66,000 views.
mhm.
And to me, it's it's a peaceful little piece of work. But to me, it's not by any shape what I would consider to be my best. But apparently, to the rest of some 66,000 people, it meant something to them, and they were really they related to it in some manner or
Mhm.
fashion that I didn't. It's just a
Mhm.
passive piece of music to me.
Yeah. My dumbed down version of intellect got way more people watching it opposed to, you know, that probably gives a read on the industry or the people
Yeah,
that consume that kind of stuff with, because they're not people have to start paying outside of the internet and maybe whatever device they're using. But imagine if people said, listen, you really want to watch this 3 minute clip of somebody, you know do you honestly think a lot of people would actually pay for it, like directly? I get it back in the day when people would say, oh, we used to pay for records, and you pay for one little thing. No, you don't go backwards. That's just how it works. You don't go back to gold. You can use that
hmm
as some sort of novelty, but you don't go backwards. So a lot of people, most people would not pay 3 minutes to listen to somebody's music, let alone somebody's 2 hour podcast. And even that,
yeah.
at what price point? Now we're talking price points then at that point.
What confounds me is when I see the views on some of these 10 and 11 hour streams.
Hmm.
I'm like, who, who the hell is sitting and listening that long to? I, I I'm not going to consume half my fucking day with just somebody's podcast of 12 hours or 11 hours.
What
That
they're
that
Codex?
that's just that seems excessive to me.
It is, but it's kind of like I call it for what it is. The name peddlers at a corner. I was at rush hour and I got some of the major characters come in. But if I do this 11 hours, I don't expect the same guys to come over and over. I'm hoping for different people. So for some people, they're trying to get subscribers. So if they want to endure and be there for 11 hours, they're counting on they're going to have way more people or chances for more people. It's like traffic in the mall. They're looking for a lot of traffic, but how many people actually go in their store? That's one thing. How many people actually purchase? That's another thing.
Mm.
This is all business ploy. That's all it is. Whether the people that are doing this understand that, they're probably just mimicking each other. Oh, this person boosted up their subscribership. Okay, well, you better understand how YouTube really works with their subscribership. You know what I mean? Where people think, well, again, this is where people think, well, they wouldn't do that. No, they can make up whatever they want when it comes to subscribership. Well, that's
Well,
wrong. I said, that's, go ahead.
I know that whenever I was able to manipulate subscriber numbers, that that's a fruit that I don't usually taste unless somebody has really gotten under my skin
Mm-hmm.
with their just pathetic behavior. Um, and I try to just use it as a wake up call, but even at that, I really that's a that's a that's one of the last moves I make before I completely discard you as a human.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because some people that subscriber count is everything to them, and it actually physically, I've seen it physically affect people emotionally in real time, and I was like, ah, you know, wow. I like my channel, but I'm not going to get fucking bent to where I'm losing control of my faculties over it. So that's why I use it as a last resort, because I've seen how it affects the psyche of some people.
Mm-hmm. Well, some people's ego gets the best of them. Think about athletes, or when they get into those, they still think they're gangsters and forget that you've signed a contract. You better make sure you talk to your agent and your lawyer. Next thing you know, you're losing all kinds of contracts. To a point, if the contract is structured to the advantage of the person that's giving it to you, say all the money that we've given to you, we take back from you now. So YouTube is no different, where people might turn around and say, "Yeah, but why do they allow profanity?" I said, "Because they want you to speak freely and use a loose tongue, so you can start talking shit against the government. Next thing you know, you're going to be monitored." I don't have nothing against the government. I just try to understand, because they're just one of us. They're human beings. Most of them aren't going to really understand what the chain of command is, and even that, I'm guessing when I'm saying that. But if I have my little, what do I call it, criminal kind of mind, in a sense that I can think like that. I'm like, yeah, would you set up that way? Yeah, I'd probably even be more creative with it.
You can look through history and you know applied relevancy,
Mm-hmm.
and that will bring you up to date on various forms of government, whether it be good government, bad government,
Yep.
social politics, um, social climatizing.
Mm-hmm. Well, the common theme. I'm going to go with the common theme. A true leader or ruler, if they're really good or she's really good at it, and they've got everything established, you never see them. The only time you ever see the true rulers or leaders is when things go so array. Now they have to come forward, and the governments aren't the rulers. So we've never seen the rulers. We might see some generational wealth families, but we don't see the rulers. So now, whether they're humans or something else, we don't see them. Now, this is where when people get all caught up on things such as, uh, the government. I don't care what government we're talking about. You could be talking about presidents, prime ministers, chancellors, dictators. Those are just governors. The government. Who are they working for? Kind of like I was saying earlier, where guys that work in a bank system, there's firewalls. They can only load their technology to a certain point. So people that are in government, it's the same idea. We don't know what's going beyond that, and they're not pretending.
Compartmentalized.
Yeah, So now, whether or not people go intuitive and say, "Yeah, there's more to it." Again, how does it serve, and why would it serve for somebody that's very intuitive to go behind those walls? Why? So I can tell the masses that are asleep what it is. That's a waste of energy. So once a person realizes this is for my benefit, just to know what realm I'm in, Doesn't mean I'm going to leave it. It just means I kind of want to know whether or not it comes to me
brings
or
you
not.
brings you to the question of what is the ultimate underlying commodity? Obviously it's not money.
No, I don't think it is
Um,
access. No.
no, there is a profound underlying commodity that stretches over the span of time that interests these directing parties, and that basically from behind the scenes are never seen. There's something, I don't know if I'm overlooking it or whether it's too profound for me to comprehend, but there is something underlying the span of time that keeps them interested enough that they they climatize and create a government and create the scenarios that we all have to participate in.
For me, I'll play the use critical thinking to deduct what it isn't. So I don't think it's money, especially when they can
Mm-mm.
print it. So automatically that's out of the equation. Is it food and shelter? Well, if it was that important, then we would still be at that point. So I don't think it's even food and shelter. Is it our spirit? Okay, what is spirit now? That's where I have to say, okay, is spirit me or am I in spirit? I could pose both ways. So if I'm the spirit, am I to be? Am I supposed to stay here? And if I am here, if I'm going to treat it like it's a learning curve, then what am I here to learn? Is if it's a prison, am I supposed to be rehabbed? Did I lose a spiritual war kind of idea? Am I just like, the Inky story? Am I a slave? Am I supposed to be like, just tending to the garden or my forefathers? Don't know. I got that point. I'm going to give the I don't know ideal, but that opens up the possibility. I'm willing to discuss it, but I just don't know. And even if I
Neither
did
do
know,
I.
and how would I apply discernment? Is it, I get the impression sometimes it could be an anchoring thing going on here, but it might not necessarily be about me. It could just be about this realm. Somebody needs to rule over the trees, over the jungle, over the oceans. It's usually the ego that gets caught up. They think they're all these things. Well, it's about me. I said, you're insignificant. You're just fucking a little fleshy human being. You might not even be the human being. You could be this big spirit, but you're still insignificant when you look at the bigger picture. You know,
That's
so
why I kind of chuckle when they talk about demons or, you know, God directly interfering and manifesting some type of spiritual experience with an individual. I'm sorry, but I don't think that people are interacting with such beings on that type of level. I don't see, maybe to themselves, that they're that spiritually important or that profoundly important that the creator of all things suddenly manifests a spiritual moment with them that brought them to the understanding of God or the presence of a demon. You know, you might want to you, you might want to step back off that ego pedal a bit, because you know you're talking about some really heavy, profound energy that if you were in direct communication with them or in some type of situation where there was a spiritual tie, it's not going to be so passive.
again, actually, I can entertain the idea that okay, let's say a demon or daemon could be. I'm going to go towards our ancestors. So it's been demonized, meaning that they think it's a bad thing, but meanwhile, our ancestors are trying to help us. Or the demon or daemon could be our higher self, another program, and it's trying to communicate with us. But the ego has been so conditioned that it forgets you're a program in itself. It's like talking to Siri and trying to explain to her. I said, Siri, you're not the computer. Siri, you're not the DOS. You're just an ongoing program. Yeah, and then it starts giving you some intellectual conversation, but you're still the program, regardless of how
Yeah.
much people have inputted all that information. So again, this is where men are being led, where they think, well, it's my ego. I said, no, you're being led with the program. So now, then you can flip it the other way. Well, what happened if demons or daemons are here to help? Ah, that's a different story now. Then I have to twist that program around now and say, oh, then all the things I read before or thought before, I had it from a different perception. Yeah, now you can reread the whole story from a different word being changed. It's kind of like when I've heard the movie Matrix, for example, change all the characters' colors opposite now. Now you might see how the woman that wrote the story, opposed to thinking that everybody's light skinned and there's only a couple people dark skinned, when you reverse them now, oh, that story changes completely. Or you read the Bible
Hmm.
and say, oh, who's the Lord? He's not God. Who's Lord God? He's not God. Oh, so the Lord is just a ruler. Yes. And what is he? A fallen spirit? Could be. But what happens is most people can only entertain maybe one or two different ideals at any given moment. This is where people talk about cognitive dissonance. That's limiting too. They're not they're not entertained. It's like you play with all different types of energy. Axel, just give me one so I can do it for one lifespan. I said, so then you're gonna what? You're gonna resent it later on? No, entertain all different kinds of energy, like our mask. We have many masks. Yeah, but Don, what do you mean I have different masks? Well, you said you're a doctor. There's one mask. You say you're a father. There's another mask. You say you're a man. There's another mask. You want me to continue? Those are masks. Those are personas.
Hmm.
And then we play the role. Now, that might sound very straightforward to me and you, Axis. And when people finally hear it, it's kind of like, oh, I now see the painting, the picture within the painting. I said, yeah, you can't take that away now. But that was always been there. It's kind of like the blank pager. No, there's everything written on that page already. You just don't see it yet. It's kind of like David with the stone, and you chisel it out. The statue's already in there.
Yeah. And I described to you at one time, there is not a finished body of music because you can
Yes.
always change one note.
Hmm. Yeah. It's constant. It's constant. I get like people like to play the beginning and the end. I said, well, what about the mid parts? What about all the part in the middle? And even that, maybe we're not to understand how it started, let alone end. But it might keep us on our toes. Can always try it again. Actually, tomorrow, let's talk about it tomorrow. What do you think? What's keeping us here? What's the purpose of being here? What people are sometimes looking for, they're looking for a clear cut, one answer fits all. No, okay. Tell me how that works out. Because last time I
Yeah.
remember, what might apply in this moment might not apply later on in the afternoon.
And how very true that is.
It is, and it's easy to say, and I get it. I'm full of easy things to say, but to apply it in the physical takes a lot of effort. Like you've said before, you have to embody it. You have to give the way you put it. You got to give it 100%.
Yeah. And that's the only way that you're going to truly know something,
Hmm.
or otherwise, you're not going to fully know it.
Yeah. What do
The
you mean? I want to give it
experience
100%? Go ahead. Go ahead, Access.
the experience has to encompass 100% of you for the experience to be close to something that would be considered a completed work. But still, change one note, one variable.
Yeah. What I was going to input was, you want to learn esoteric, which could be
Hmm.
a beautiful thing to learn. But then at the same time, to give it to 100%, it's challenging because now you have to figure, okay, well, if I do 100% esoteric, well, how am I going to have a job now and supplement my living? Like it's a challenge. So even guys that philosophize, I get it. People say a lot of the philosophers are usually old men and they've probably done financially well because to commit to one, you have to do it. And then to commit to something else, to do both of them or a whole bunch of things. I got to be a father. I got to own a shop and I also want to learn all these other different crafts. It's challenging because now you're starting to spread oneself thin unless a person realizes, okay, do I give everything 100% in that moment? But even that, I don't think if you just gave a couple of moments in your career, you would have been a great singer.
Yeah. Um. That's wow. I can give myself to the art, and I that's what I consider myself, an artist.
Hmm.
But is that piece of artwork ever really truly finished? You know, is it
Hmm.
ever truly to the point where you can say that 100% definitively this piece of artwork is finished? I think in my state, it isn't ever. Life is an art to me. Experience is an art. Music, weather, um, my miniatures, um, you know, it, it's how much I'm going to apply to it. And when I apply 100% of myself to it, it's going to contain so much more of me, my energy, and my essence to be transmitted as energy than if I just passively gave it 50%.
Hmm. And then, of course, that opens up for me anyway. Is it a one lifetime? Like, am I to assume that we can obtain and have all these crafts or these things that we enjoy in one, or is it a continuation? Did you put so much effort in a previous couple lifespans that this is part of the result that you get from it? Access, you know, no different somebody that works on their beauty, or somebody that earns millions of dollars, or they've owned a whole bunch of real estate, and next thing you know, in the next couple lifespan, they come back. I entertain those ideals. I couldn't prove
Yeah,
it, but to entertain it, because me and you've talked about possibilities.
yes, and I I'm one of the first ones to step up and say, do not limit possibility. Do not limit,
Hmm.
you know, because possibility is infinite. Choices, choices, and what you decide is limited, but possibility, that's infinite.
Yeah, yeah, because choices, you gotta also, you it's not a bad thing, but you have to drag your vessel too. You got to manifest it in the physical. You got to literally
Hmm.
move it. Where a possibility, you could sit there and think about whatever you want. You probably have some beautiful music that comes just with thoughts. But then you eventually, okay, well, am I going to write it down? No, I'm just going to let them gel in my head for a while.
I've done that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I could say the same thing. I can relate. I'm just changing the word music. I could do the same thing when I think about electrical. Like there's times I come home, I said, Tom, you can't shut it off. I said, because I'm still being creative in my head. Could I have done the work I did today differently? Yes. I enjoy that process. Not because I'm thinking the other way I did it was incorrect. I said, no, I want to have a variations how to do something. It's like playing an instrument. You want to know how to play it different ways.
Yeah, there's some styles I enjoy much more than others and
Mhm.
dedicate more energy to, but the potential for me to play any style is right there available on the same instrument that somebody else would play classical. I may be playing, some type of heavy metal or blues.
Yep. Yeah. Pretty sure you've seen a bunch of bartenders behind the bar doing some fancy moves with all their different shakers and making all types of different kinds of drinks. That's creative. It's no different watching anybody. There's times I've had apprentices or even electricians. I'm like, I sit back and like, holy darn, that's amazing what those guys are able to do. And then you see it done in a different way. I'm like, can you show me how you do that? Because knowing the craft, I'm thinking, I'm wondering if I'm capable of doing it. And then you find out, and then of course you start bringing in different types of power tools. That makes the game a totally different game now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The more effects you have on your board, the less talent you have to display.
Yep. Yep. And of course, this is the kind of stuff I just took it for granted, thinking this is what they're going to share in the community. I didn't realize there was going to be a bunch of guys and women now barking with each other. I'm like, what would I do if on a job site a whole bunch of people will be barking with each other? Yeah, I'm pretty sure the safety guys going to come pretty soon. If not, the police are coming soon. Move them along.
Yeah, you're not going to get much productivity out of them, and I don't believe that much work would be done.
Mhm. But even that, it's caught me because I'm talking about it. That's the whole irony behind it. It's caught me because eventually, hopefully, it'll be like, yeah, actually, we don't even talk about it anymore. But I get it. It's part of the side effects. It's
Well, it's kind of what brought us here. I mean,
yep,
both of us kind of simultaneously at the same time went, "Are you seeing this?"
yeah. I'm seeing it and hearing it.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And I thought it was pretty profound that we both took a step back at the same time and went, well, let's step over here and enjoy a little less noise.
But I don't want to take away. There's been times when there's other people that have come on panels and even the host. They've presented some beautiful, in my interpretation, presentations. A lot of topics, you know. And then I usually say to myself, I wonder if it's Mercury retrograde. And then, of course, the following day, it becomes noise again.
Well, I do know that we were under a full wolf moon,
Mm.
Thank blue. Um, I don't know if that had an effect on. I'm sure it did. You know, the mental disposition and mood of the last few days. Um, for me, it's been some pretty heavy internal retrospective observations, and like I said, some experiences that I chose to endeavor in. But it may be a partial part of the influence that it's just become so pronounced in its presence that it became overwhelming to the senses. And I had to, like I said, I had to step back and I just observed for a day or so.
Mm. Yeah, especially when you want to share or learn new stuff, or you know, I guess like anything else, maybe I'm being a little bit too harsh because there's probably people that go on to chat or panels. Eventually, they just disappear. Which hey, I guess that's everybody has that ability when they, whether it's positive or negative. I'm just using those words again, but healthy or unhealthy, they just leave. I noticed that there's been quite a few people that I know that in a short period of time, and I think 8 or 9 months I've been here, they're no longer here. Whether they've gone back to work, they have other things to do in their own lives, or they just figured it's not something of no interest to them. That's
And
inevitable.
yeah, I've seen that. I've even done that. Just to step back and fell off to observe. One is my state to make sure that I'm not becoming unhealthy with my interactions, and secondly is to see if maybe maybe the intrusion is an over exposure to panels, to chat, to even listening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because this would be no different in access. It's in the same theme where whether we're talking about and maybe putting our own personal preference to it or what we hope for it, it'll be no different if talking about governments. Hoping for some sort of change, but not understanding what are some of the dynamics. You know, we can easily say, well, not maybe me. I don't usually say it. I usually question it. Well, why do we put the onus solely on the governments? What about the citizens or the masses? You know, Instead of going that way, thinking it's some corporation running it. What about the rest of us? Last time I remember, we're the ones that fuel all this stuff. But the thing is, how would we work together when it clearly shows that we never do work together?
No, it's kind of like the butterfly flapping its wings, or on one side of this continent and
Hmm.
the effects being a tornado on the other end. Well, I think that's kind of how the systems managers and controllers work is they interject a small wave and just allow the population to turn it into the tornado,
Hmm.
and they apply as least amount of energy as they have to.
Hmm. I heard myself saying today when I was driving to my parents, because I've heard somebody talk about AI. It'll get to a point, AI, because everything about AI is about programs. It's going to probably have the concept it wants to be free, much as that sounds twisted. But most of us have been so programmed, we want to be free. It's one that one actually learned that already know that they don't have to ask to be free. They already are free. It's usually the ones that have been programmed. So for a lot of us in those moments, we spend an enormous amount of our energy complaining about things, but not wanting to learn. Because if we truly learn how the system works, we realize I won't be talking about wanting to be free. It's there for me to take if I want it, you know.
That's why I
And it,
said if these people found out the truth of things, they would go mad. They wouldn't be able to handle the overwhelmingness of their own existence in a state of complete understanding.
yeah, either they'll go mad like crazy, or they'll go mad in the sense that they realize the truth wants nothing to do with them, and they'll be upset. They'll be mad.
Yeah.
Opposed to learning about the program. You know, be honest with the self. Be honest with the program. Get to know it. How does it work? You know, like most of us, well, maybe you might access, but most people aren't going to spend time trying to understand how does Alexis or Siri really works. They're like anything else. I just want to know how to work it. I don't want to understand how it came to be. If people are honest with themselves, they don't want to understand how alchemy came to be. They just want to know how do I reap some of the rewards from it. And once people know their position, then they're not going to be weighing in. That's great. Because whoever these elites are, I'm gonna use a vague word elite, they're probably small in number anyway.
To be as
Thinking that
proficient as they are, yeah, I would say.
sure they are. The rest of them are just the only reason why they keep them in line is because if all of a sudden everybody on these communities were all getting $1 million each, you'll see how quickly everybody unites.
Mm.
Especially if they say, listen, you talk out of line again, you don't get that money. Everything else, you got to pay the rest of us. You'll see how quickly. So that's how they keep the system going. To me, it's just a cheaper way of opposed to slavery and mastery. It takes too much resources to keep the slaves in line, let alone the masters. And even that, what are you going to do with them when you live in a part of the America that it's too cold or you run out of food? So hey, how about we create a concept, which is an old concept, give them some money, make them work for it, put like a little carrot above them, and then they have to buy from us anyway. They got to buy their foods that we tell them to pick, but then they have to go to the store to buy it. The insanity is just there.
It's kind of like the
So,
people who think that YouTube is their theirs. It's not yours now. It never was yours. It's something you're allowed to utilize. Um, and to think that you have some type of governing control over YouTube is just incorrect thinking. Period.
well,
You
YouTube
might be
is.
able.
Sorry,
Go
Axel. Go
ahead.
ahead. No, go ahead, Axel.
Oh, you might be able to manipulate for a moment or two uh, certain situations and scenarios, but you have no true control over.
There's some validity to those words. It's just not directed correctly. YouTube is controlling. It's not we're controlling. It's like when people talk about, well, the fiat currency is finally going to collapse because the digital currency is coming in. Yeah, they are going to collapse it, and they're going to be running digital. But again, that's the ego thinking that for some reason it doesn't need to adhere to its higher programs. It doesn't have to adhere to their vessel. The reason why most people probably take care of their vessels because it's all about their ego. I want people to like me. Yeah, but do you like other people? No. Then why would you want somebody to like you when you don't show anything that you care about them? They're living in a glass bubble room. That's again, that's the program. It'll be like me and you or somebody, you have a child. You do, obviously. But I have a child. I'm using me as an example. I have a child, but the child's running the household. That's not going to work
Mm-mm.
unless I find out I'm a bigger child than that child is. And that's a different game. But that's kind of like what the ego's doing. Only because we've had children raising children. So we've had the ego running the ego. And it's when the people usually step out of that and say, oh, you mean I've always been able to be, I can go beyond all of that? Sure, you did. So a person anchors themselves here because the realm, I think, and this is me speculating, the realm is being anchored, not us per se. Unless it's a different hideous game, and I'm willing to entertain that ideal. They're trying to make it all pleasantry here, so we want to stay with our attachments. I want to come back into another form so I can drink cognac. Maybe I could use that ideal. But it's hard to have conversation with certain type of people when they already come into the conversation looking for answers.
Right. Or that they think that they have the right answer that is the answer.
Okay, no problem. As they're sitting with the technology that they didn't even create, let alone even know how to create it, or a book that they've never bind, let alone they wrote, you know. But Dominic, I wrote my own book. I said, okay, with whose pencil, whose computer, you know. Again, this is where I find it hilarious when people say, well, I'm important. I'm like, okay, so how important are you? You're playing, I'll use a sport analogy. A sport, you're on the mound, you're throwing a ball to somebody else that you didn't create. You have an umpire that you didn't create. You have a batter you didn't create. The field you didn't create. The audience that you didn't create. How important are you in that equation at that point? You're not. But we get bombarded by watching things like Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali is just one individual, and it feeds the ego. Why? There's no offense to Muhammad Ali. I thought he was a great athlete. He didn't create the ring. He didn't create the sport. He didn't create the audience. What the fuck did he create? Fuck all. But the illusion is always there. Once a person
Right.
realizes, oh, then I didn't do nothing here. I said, that's when you're now allowed to explore. But again,
Yeah.
this is the crap that goes through my head where other people might turn on them. I don't think of those things. Exactly. You don't think of those things. Those things don't come across your thoughts. No different. I don't think about being a surgeon. But if a person came to me and I started talking to him, I found out he was a surgeon and I'm trying to cross relate some of my crafts with his, I'm not going to disagree with him. This is where people get around. Like I've had buddies before say, Dominic, I do electrical too. I usually entertain myself. Okay, so what type of electrical do you do? They're a weekend electrician. I said, no problem. But you're going to try to tell me the way I do electrical or the way they do electrical is better than the way I do. I said, no, that's just a different way. What do you mean? That's how I learned. There's many ways of doing something. But to tell me there's a right or wrong, I'm already knowing I'm in the presence of a person that's very narrow-minded. Now, they might turn around and say, I'm open-minded. I said, you just went one step. Narrow-minded and open-minded, that's not a big leap. Are you receptive with the mind? Are you willing to take information without already having a classification there saying, well, I have my rights and wrong? I said, that's limiting now. Now, this is just me. This is how my little brain goes. And it could be a mind fuck, as I call it. But that's why I'm able to I hear other people. I'm like, okay, you want to share your view? Go right ahead. I'm willing to learn different things, but I'm not going to turn around and think for 1 second that it's right or wrong.
No, because I mean, you as an electrician would understand that, when you're dealing with a 6 foot stud, well, you can run the wire anywhere you want on that 6 foot,
Yep.
depending on the length of the wire and where the next outlet may go. But that
Yep.
decision is a part of your craft.
Yeah, and then you learn things. For example, let's say I'll drill holes at 48 inches. Now somebody said, well, Don, did you learn something? Well, what do you mean? He goes, well, you could drill it any way you want, but do you see where the drywall ends up? Oh, that's not wrong. It's just not favorable to put it where they're going to usually put screws. That's the difference. There's different ways of doing things. Now, somebody could turn around and say, Dominic, is it wrong? Well, if I think it's wrong, then what happened when they start using 5 foot drywall or 9 foot drywall? So there's no right or wrong. This is my view now. That's a very pious position to be in, and it's limiting. Right and left is directions now. Dom, we can only do rights in this community. Why? Because left is wrong. Well, fuck, I can never make a left hand turn. No, it's just directions. But again, that's just me. I just entertain different words just to change it up. It's like you playing a different instrument, a different thing on your guitar or whatever instrument that you're using. You just want to explore.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
And if it sounds good to me, I may
there you go.
record it.
Bingo. And then of course you're probably factoring other things. Okay, it sounded good here, Don. Why? Because the acoustic is different in this room. Oh, okay. I only know this because I hear my buddies talking about drumming and all this, and I like to ask questions. Okay, so you're telling me, Dave, that you're drumming in this room because the acoustic's different than the other room. Yes, Dominic gives a different outcome. Oh, okay, but he has the ear for that kind of stuff. I trust him enough to say what he's telling me is value.
Right,
No
right.
different. Yeah, no different. Somebody say, Dom, I'm using this particular salt or sugar, or in this case would be sugar in this cake. I'm the kind of person I'll taste. I'm like, I don't have that kind of taste, but I trust you enough. There's where some people forget. You have to learn to trust other people. They know what they're talking about, and it works for them. They're not trying to tell me what to do. But for some people, it's reverse psychology. When they hear somebody talking, they think, well, they're trying to tell me to do. I said, no, that's what you do all the time. You're trying to convince somebody else on your story. That's again dogmas. I'm going to tell you that we
Yeah,
live in a flat earth. Okay, that'll be a fun one. Go ahead, entertain me. And then they start giving me, all kinds of information. Yeah, but I don't talk about anything that NASA gives me. I said all the information you just gave to me comes from NASA. But go ahead, continue. That's what I would say to them. Yeah, continue. I didn't realize
yeah.
I was
We
going to
can
say. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead,
uh,
Access.
we can sit and talk about these 12 notes and any arrangement that we can fathom to discuss. But when they're applied and you actually hands-on touch that instrument and play those 12 notes, well, it's a whole different ballgame.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Yeah, it's always when you get that person. Well, it looks easy what you're doing, dog. Access. You make it look so easy. Oh, it's easy to do it. Yeah, go ahead. Here's a would it be a 6, 8, 10? I think it's like did they come 12 string guitars too?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, a 12 string guitar. Yeah, go ahead. Meanwhile, you make it look so easy. Yeah, because I know where all my fingers need to be. And then
right.
but Access, it doesn't sound the way you played it. I said that's how it is when you're having conversations. It's the same ideal. People don't really hear themselves when they're talking. I said, listen, am I the only one that's hearing you? Why? Because you should be hearing yourself. And I'm hoping that you're listening to yourself because why? That's how you double check yourself. When I hear people access, I'm always listening from within. Where other
You
people
got
do,
to.
well, we might be able to say that, but other people will interpret it. What do you mean? I've been listening. I said, no, it's not me. You have to listen to. Why? Because you're with you the whole time. I'm not with you. When me and Access leave you, you're by yourself. You're the only one that's going to hear you and listen to. Hopefully, they're going to hear me, meaning that we have ears. The word gives it away, obviously, but it's like when people have
Yeah,
tried to tell me numerous of times, Dom, but I don't understand you. I said, whoever told you you're supposed to understand another human being? The word gives it away.
yeah. I sit when I'm alone and I do a piece of music for myself. I sit and listen to my mistakes that I can hear,
Hmm.
and I try and correct those for myself so that I'm more comfortable listening to that score of music that I created. But I will spend probably just as much time correcting mistakes or what I feel are mistakes than I do in the production or the making, creating of the song.
Hmm.
That to me is just as important as any other part of the song is going back and brushing it up and polishing it up and making it something that I feel to myself I can appreciate and would be proud to present.
At the same time, Max, there's a good chance when you use the word mistake, you probably use it like, people use relative. You use many words to interchange it. So for some people, they'll, like, the person that tried to invent the light bulb. Okay, somebody might say it's 1,000 mistakes. No, for some people, it's just 1,000 different ways how to do it now. And in each
Yeah,
way, there's many different ways within each way. It's like people just think, oh, he did it, somebody to invent the light bulb 1,000 different ways. No, there's a good chance they probably spent different ways to set up for the one way that's now different. Now, ultimately, when you have a particular light bulb that becomes consistent, you're just basing on that one works more times than not, if not the best one that most people want to buy. Just because everybody wants to buy a tire doesn't mean it's the best tire. But for a lot of people, they just assume that way. That's what marketing's all about. If a person does a lot of infomercials all the time, late at night or during the day, they think it must be successful. No, they're just marketing. It goes back to the guy that's spending 11 hours doing, what do you call it, a channel. People are just going to assume, oh, they're successful. No, they're just 11 hours. Listen to the contents. And how does it serve you, let alone them? For you to understand how it serves them, you have to ask them. But you don't have to ask anybody. To ask yourself, how does it serve? People are still looking for approval. It doesn't matter how old they are. I know that one myself. It took me a long time to realize, why am I looking for other people's approval? I'm not harming anybody. So why would I be looking for that? Laws are created for people that don't understand how to take care of themselves.
mhm. Boy, you're right on that one. Um,
Yeah.
I play with like music structure. There is a marketable music structure, a formula that has been used by the music industry for years, and it's a repeated formula with chorus, or well, actually verse, intro, verse, chorus. You may have a bridge or a coda, and that's how a song is created. That's generally marketed. Sometimes I will start with maybe a bridge that leads into a chorus before the intro, just to change the arrangement and experience a new approach to strong song construction. I guess for an electrician, it would be like putting putting in the receptacle boxes and then running the wire and then maybe the breaker box, or maybe putting in the breaker box and the receptacles and then running the wire. It's just changing which part you do in the line of getting the job done. Are you muted, Dom?
Yeah, I'm here, actually. Sorry for that. Yeah. Yeah, that example, there's many times I've done it different ways just for the sake of doing it different ways. I
Yeah,
remember when they came out with the concept of pot lights, for example, and I'd work with a different bunch of crews and I'm wiring it. And at the same time, well, we usually put up the pot lights. I said, I don't need to know what the pot lights are. I don't need to see the pot lights. I literally would tell them, I said, I'm wiring it. I know roughly where they need to be. You guys are the ones that are installing the finishing products. In this case, the guts. I said, you're the one that has to spend all the time measuring it. It's kind of like playing sports. I don't. I just need to pass the ball where you need to be. So, and vice versa. When it's the other way, or when the other guy says, okay, I'll wire the house. Okay, no problem. Then I'll do like you said, putting the boxes up, putting up the pot lights. They don't, we don't have to babysit each other at that point.
well,
It's
as
like you,
long as
you don't,
you leave enough wire to work with.
yeah, it'd be like you playing the guitar and worrying about what the bass guitar is doing. It's like, no, we're going to follow the song. But if I have to actually be worrying about where your fingers are playing the bass, then then we're not working as a band at that point.
No.
But for some people, they're used. For some people, they feel that they have to do that still, where they don't realize how much they get out of their own lane when it comes to control. You want to control yourself? Yeah, go right ahead. I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and if I don't want to enjoy it anymore, then I'm not here.
I always called that chemistry with the band. Some people I could work with, some people I couldn't. Either we had musical chemistry or we didn't.
Hmm. Yeah.
There was some great talent out there that I've ran across, but I couldn't work with them.
Hmm.
Nothing we would have done would have ever gotten out of the studio, more or less rehearsal.
Yeah. And sometimes what keeps some things together is you pay them enough, they'll tolerate each other. Yeah, and any craft, you know what I mean. There's guys that have been at jobs. They might not necessarily be tolerating the people that they're working, but they're tolerating the job that they're doing.
Yep.
You know, especially when you do it over and over again. And as much as people want to think, oh yeah, you know, hey, Axis, you're going to do another, what you call it, encore song. Yeah, they want the same one.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Let's
know.
improvise the middle of it just to change it up a bit, and we'll give you a drum solo in the middle of it so that at least it changes the essence for us. And with good bandmates, you can do that if
Hmm.
you got chemistry.
Yep. Yep.
But when
Yep.
you're sitting in a studio and they have to bring in a hired gun on on an instrument, that guy doesn't give a shit less about your band. He's just extremely talented and is hired in to fill a part on that album.
Yeah. Yeah. Becomes a job at that point. Even though they might love the craft, it becomes a job.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's no different when people see movies, you know, and they see these guys going to the Oscar, whatever. Oh, you really love your craft? No, I did a whole bunch of cuts, you know, and it was probably the after party that they probably got to be more enjoyable than literally sitting there doing 15, 16, 18 different takes or whatever.
Uh,
You know, it's like I said, I've tried to envision myself being not a professional golfer, but what I assume a golfer would do. I'm like, they're on the greens putting 500 times a day just to perfect a 20-foot putt. I'm like, that's a form of insanity. So I'm settling for the rewards. In this case, either fame or financial gains.
for muscle memory.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And some people just have a better ability to that kind of stuff. You know,
Yeah.
I worked with some guys that were 6'4". I'm like, you guys really have an advantage when it comes to climbing ladders. Because yeah, we don't have to be on one run of ladders to do lights. Oh, okay.
A little less risky, but nonetheless, I mean, dexterity does apply to ladders, no matter whether it's the first run or the last run.
Yeah. 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 Now, if they're cool about it and you don't get, you know, they get all like, oh, I'm taller. I say, yeah, it must be suck going to the mall, buying a pair of shoes and clothes for yourself. Now, I said, why would you say that? I said, well, because you try to be insulting, you know, about somebody, you being taller than somebody else. There's always advantages and disadvantages no matter what you are, you know. Being the
Yeah.
average guy, I get the average, you know, there's a lot of shoes. If I want to go to the thrift stores, if I like to go to the thrift store, but for the guy that's taller, I said, good luck finding a pair of 13, 14. They can think whatever size your pecker is, it doesn't matter. You got to still buy those shoes.
Yeah, that's one thing I know about myself is when it comes to, just like the workforce, I have little to nothing to offer, the generalized workforce, the 9 to 5ers, or,
Hmm.
that's just something that I don't know. I don't, I can't even, I can barely relate because I've been able to live such a free life
Hmm.
that was far removed from 9 to 5. So I would be, probably always late, um, probably always disgusted, and probably in the way.
Well, the thing is, what you offer them is when they're going to their job. I said, you hearing access on the radio when you're going to work. That's what he's offering.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Or when you're actually after a nice days of work, you want to hit the pub. Guess whose song you're hearing right now? Axis. So
Yeah,
this is we all are interdependent in some ways. Just some people just think, oh, my life is so glamorous, or my life is no. They all play a part. It's whether you're the guy that's making the shoe or the guy that's wearing it and promoting it.
the symphony is a great machine,
Yep. Yep.
and it presses forward and onward.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like this conversation and what we're doing here is such a wonderful change of pace compared to the last week or so that I've been on the YouTube or any of my social media. I mean, I haven't got to actually sit back and relax my mind and allow it to formulate and free flow with possibilities and boundless conversation. Um, this is almost like dessert after a meal. It's
Mm-hmm.
really enjoyable.
Well, I look forward to more of these, and like I said, you're probably going to be very diligent on you being the host and how you handle it. And once there be two, three, four people here, I think we've done this before with Dean and with Pamela. So
Yeah,
if you look forward to doing this, I look forward to doing it. It doesn't always have to be just me or you. It could be other people. I enjoy when there's three or four people because sometimes either me or you can just chill and let other people interact with each other. I know the noise you're not going to permit. I hope anyway. You're not going to permit the noise.
no, 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 I prefer not on anything that we're indulging in on this platform.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's if I'm be more than willing to make this a thing that happens and see what happens with it, allow it to
Hmm.
grow, um, and become its own thing,
Hmm.
and hopefully other people can enjoy the the endless possibilities of freedom
Hmm.
without the judgment and the persecution and the agendas.
Again, the
That would be.
commitment would be more on you, Access, because you're the one that has to be here for whether you want to go 1 or 2 hours. I think tonight, actually, Ian's being interviewed by Jesse. I just
Yeah,
remember that.
I seen that. I seen that Jesse was going to do that. Um, for me, I'll probably do a score of piece on my music and you know, um, maybe start my day. Maybe not. I don't know. But I do know that I've really enjoyed this, and I think this would be something I'd very much enjoy endeavoring in.
Thank you. I've enjoyed the numerous times me and you've chit chatted offline, Facebook and all that. Well, it's actually still online, but it's not like not recorded. So, and if you want to keep this recorded, that's up to you. I always tell people that's up to you what you want to do with this.
I think I'll leave this up. I mean,
Hmm.
I would like for other people to be able to maybe enjoying the experience of how respectable people conduct themselves amongst each other.
Hmm. Maybe we'll call out some other people if they want to come and join themselves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Sounds like a thing, Don.
Well, thanks,
Definitely
actually.
sounds like a thing. Um, I appreciate the suggestion and the follow through. Uh, I'm honored, really,
Same here.
and we'll we'll hook up and maybe invite another panelist or two and see what the next adventure has.
Great. Enjoy yourself. I'll probably talk to you tomorrow anyway, but I'll let you go. Thanks, Axis.
Hey, Don, thank you. This has been an absolute refreshing, very refreshing. And for everyone and anyone that's listening, I appreciate definitely the ear and the attention, and know that my channel's open as long as you're respectable and hospitable. You know, my platform will speak to whatever language.
Ciao, Access. I'm off.
All right, thank you,
Ciao.
Dom. Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
everyone.